Who?
Adam 22, the guy,
Nope.
No Jumper podcast. So
Oh, yes, I have
basically,
heard of him. Yes, Destiny
uh,
was on his show. Yes.
so people are so pissed that he was on podcast and he showed his boyfriend. Look, this guy fucked my wife. And he was like normalizing as if he's trying to normalize that shit. And they all and in his podcast, he has brought a lot of OnlyFans. These people who make a lot of job on OnlyFans. Last episode, they brought in a girl. They talked to a girl who claimed she made like $800,000 by just being a dog to some guy. And it's like this shit's like. Do you think exposing this to like the like it, I'm talking about like in the podcast genre, they're trying to normalize it. Like this is this a good influence on girls?
If you get paid $800,000 and you consent to doing it, then yeah, it's perfectly fine.
I agree with the consent. I'm not bothered with the consent. Like it's okay, but still,
Like, if you
is
consensual interactions between adults, you should normalize that. Yes, if they're weird, it doesn't make a difference. What you think is weird or appropriate is irrelevant. What matters is as long as they're consensual interactions between adults, then yeah, it's perfectly fine to normalize it. You should
okay.
normalize it, the ability to have consensual interactions with adults, regardless of what those are. It should not be considered normal to demonize certain actions as weird because you don't find them socially normal or whatever. That's not correct.
Yeah, I know. This is weird, or it's just like, but if this happened en masse, it's
There
always
would be a lot
happening.
of rich girls. That would be for sure.
I don't know. This is like, is this a good healthy sexual dynamic?
There's no such
Like
thing as a
yeah,
healthy sexual dynamic. It's whatever you consent to do with your
people
partner.
simping. Simping's not healthy. Like I don't think simping is healthy. Like the people
Um,
should stop simping and
I
just
don't know
like
what you
act
mean
have
by
actual
I don't know what you mean by
partners.
simping.
Like them paying these women to do this. Like
Why would that matter?
okay, I don't know.
The fact that you
Sure.
find something healthy that is different from what they do is irrelevant. Like, who cares what you think? Like, what they find healthy for their
Can't we
lives
like have?
is independent of you entirely.
Hmm. Sure. That's all I had. But
All right.
anyway, have a nice day.
Yep.
I go.
Peace.
Like you can just like beam me down to the audience.
Sure.
Send me-
I'm gonna be straightforward.
Okay. Do you have a
Uh,
question?
yes, I have a question. Do you believe energy is God?
No, that's stupid.
Why?
Energy doesn't have a mind.
Yeah, okay, I know, but do you believe do you believe he holds the properties of omnipotent,
No.
So it's not omnipotent.
No, energy can't do anything that's logically possible.
So is it omnipresent then for you?
No, because energy isn't a single thing. So, like, is there stuff everywhere? Yes. Is energy like a singular thing that's everywhere? No.
No. Wait. So energy is not everywhere then. It's not everywhere.
Energy is everywhere. Energy is not an
No,
individual.
energy is everywhere, so it's
No,
it's
no,
omnipresent.
omnipresent means there is a single thing which is everywhere. Energy is a bunch of different things which is everywhere.
Wait, so I think you mean like the multiple aspects of energy, because there's like multiple aspects of energy, like
No.
light,
No,
heat,
no.
motion.
Like, suppose you're
You mean like
in
that
the
type of stuff,
ocean.
right?
Water isn't omnipresent in the ocean
What do you mean water is not omnipresent?
because water isn't a singular thing. It's a whole bunch of different hydrogen and oxygen atoms combined. So it's not like there is just
Yeah, I know
essence
what
of
you mean.
water. Energy is the same
So
thing.
I
It's a
know what you
part.
mean.
It's a thing that stuff is made of, but it isn't a thing which is omnipresent.
Wait. So wait. So I just want to know what you mean. So you mean like the energy and like the stuff that it like has like the other aspects of energy, like heat and
It's nothing
like
to do with
light and
aspects. It has
stuff.
zero to do with aspects.
So what you mean? So I think you mean like energy itself isn't like you mean energy itself is not omnipresent.
Yes, there is no one thing called energy which exists everywhere.
Where did you get this from?
Physics.
Is there like an article of that?
Sure, just Google what energy is.
Okay. TJ, by the way, nice background. Did he change it up?
I changed the position of my camera, my table. My table is facing the other direction in the room now.
Better, or is it like bad or
What?
that's when isn't because I got like some backlash of my mic being really bad, you know.
Maybe, I have no idea.
Yeah, so I don't know. So I just searched. So what should I search on Google then? Like
just start
is
taking
energy.
classes on energy and say, is
I
energy?
do.
No, you don't. Clearly, you don't.
I do.
No.
Like,
Go take a physics class.
how would you know that?
Go take a physics class.
But I heard you before, TJ. You said like you like it doesn't matter what you think, right?
Wait, what you think doesn't matter.
Yeah, wait. So, TJ, I just want to know, like, you know, you don't believe in a God, right?
Nope.
Like, would you believe in a God that doesn't have a mind?
Nope, it wouldn't be a God.
Why would it not be a God?
Because God entails a mind. This is how the word is used.
No. So what the definition is, I think I'll just say the definition. The definition is as being conceived as a perfect, omnipotent, omniscient originator and the ruler of the universe.
Yes. So what does it mean to be a ruler? Do you think energy is a ruler of the universe?
No. So ruler can be also looked in different ways. It can be as drawing a straight line and measuring length.
Nope.
That can also be.
Anybody else have any questions that are not stupid? Non-stupid questions. Anyone else non-stupid questions? What else do I need to chat? Hello, Mandu Rubib. Pibot Thulu, how's it going? 60-second skeptic, Carlos, native, Trillion. Beats of the heart, lyrics of the soul. How's it going? Javier, how's it going? Sort of lagging. Sort of lagging, sort of not lagging. Need to update my camera settings again. Yeah, the J Robin one. J Robin's an interesting guy to debate. I kind of like Precept. I like the ones where there's actually Precept who listen and have intellectual conversations. I have no idea. I don't keep up with the Discord Precept crowd.
I'll try to answer. I'll try to give you non-stupid questions.
Okay, that would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about before. So I'll try to do this in the other way. So, instead of asking like the energy type thing. So like if you don't believe God, right? So if you don't like believe there is a God at all, what would you like replace your God with?
You don't need a God. So if you don't need a God, you don't need to replace it. Like, what would you replace unicorns with?
With my imagination.
How are you replacing unicorns with your imagination? That is a stupid question.
Because you made the unicorn with your imagination, right?
Sure.
So you could replace it with your imagination.
I don't think you understand what the concept of replace means.
Okay, sure. Then that's another dumb question. Then so then instead of like what would you replace God with? Like then how would you live your life without believing in God? That's like the more like as an atheist, you know.
Just like all the other atheists do.
Yeah, but how would you do it? Like, like morality and all.
I have a model
stuff.
of morality. I have a website that is specifically about it.
Okay, how do you ground it? Like
Google
because you think
Church of the Best Possible World.org.
Okay, sure. Let's see this.
Are you muted? Yes, Russia Defender is server muted. I didn't do it. I don't have powers.
I mean, you're mod.
Yo, what's up, guys? What's going on?
Not much.
Yo, can we get this nerd LXF off, bro? He's asking horrible questions, bro. He's got nothing to add, bro.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, my son, yes, of course. I always have a question. So, my little son, my question is this, right? How do you explain energy coming into existence when there's no energy before that? How do you explain that?
Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's the first law of thermodynamics. It didn't come into existence.
Where did it come from, though? Where did it come from?
First law, energy cannot be created or destroyed.
That's circular. No, that's circular.
That's not circular. You don't know what circular means. It's literally the first
law of thermodynamics. Dude, where did energy come from? Where?
First law of thermodynamics. Next. All right. Anybody else?
Okay, so wait, T-Jump. So I just want to understand your point of view. So do you think space-time can exist without matter?
Yes.
What? Wait. Do you have like anything to like back up that claim though?
Space-time isn't made of matter. It's a field. Space-time is a field. Fields are not made of matter, so fields can exist without matter.
No, but I mean existence of space-time. I mean, sure.
Space-time is a field. It exists with no matter because matter isn't a field.
Okay, so wait, how do you perceive time then? Without matter then?
Who cares how you perceive it? It can exist without matter.
Okay, but where is this claim coming from?
What? I literally just explained this. No more stupid questions.
Yeah, but like, is there article for this? Like,
yes, space-time is a field. Google it. Google what is a field. Is a field made of matter? No, it is not.
I'm Discord boy.
Great. Do you have a question? No.
Okay, I'm gonna try to bring. I'm gonna try to bring the vibes up because it looks like this show is kind of like
It's probably
it's kind of dying out.
Probably your fault for all stupid questions.
Oh come on, T-Jump. It's not like come on, bro. Like okay, so T-Jump. So is morality based on thoughts? Is your morality based on your thoughts? No. Why is your morality based on
reality?
It's based on reality, so based on nature.
Yes.
Okay, so
anybody else have any non-stupid questions?
Nature have a mind. Does nature have a mind? No.
Cause is capable of non-stupid questions. Margot Robbie or Amber Heard? Think carefully. Amber Heard is more attractive than Margot Robbie. Amber Heard, back when she was like 20, was perfect.
Yeah, so T-Jump, so you don't think, so you know that nature doesn't have a mind?
Clearly, you are proof of that.
Yes. Okay, so T-Jump, would you think that morality is not based on a mind?
Yes, morality, just like everything else that objectively exists, is not based on a mind.
Okay, so what do you base it on? You base it on reality then.
If it's a law of physics, then it's objective without a mind.
Okay, but reality doesn't have a mind, or not?
Yes, you don't need a mind for morality. Morality affects minds. It doesn't come from
No,
minds.
reality doesn't have a mind.
Yes, exactly. Morality does not
So
come from a
how would
mind.
you base it off? How would you base your morality
Anybody
off something
with
that
not
doesn't have a
stupid
mind?
questions.
Do you base it off process?
Law of physics. It is a thing in reality like gravity or energy or mass.
So you base your morality based off energy and
Morality is a law of physics like gravity.
So basically the body. So basically you would agree that it's based on the body then.
Stupid. Anybody have not stupid questions?
No.
Where is Darth Dawkins when you need him? He asks less stupid questions. God, this girl would ask less stupid questions. Depressing.
I'm here again.
Do you have a less stupid question?
Okay, so this is a less stupid question that is based on
which Spice
fact.
Girl is the hottest? The one who married
Spice Girl?
the soccer player.
So the one that doesn't marry the soccer player is
There's like 6 of them. The one that married
Yeah.
the professional soccer player, like Ronaldo or something.
Yeah.
Victoria Beckham.
What do you,
She's the hot one.
like?
She used to be back when she wasn't
What
40.
are you trying to get at? What are you trying to get with this, Tina?
The questions from my Twitch chat are less stupid than your questions. That's what I'm trying to get at.
What?
David
So like the Twitch chat would be like more entertaining then?
Yes.
Like okay. Wait, so the premise I'm trying to give you, T-Jump, is that scientists actually agree that they can't prove or disprove God because they can't detect God. That's what scientists agree upon.
We don't care about proof. We care about evidence. Anybody else?
No,
Stupid questions.
but
Anybody have non-stupid
scientists
questions?
agree on this. Yeah, what is non-stupid for you? That's like your idea.
Questions that are actually relevant to philosophy, epistemology, morality.
Yeah, I was basing those. The last question I did was based on morality. So you base your morality off reality. So if reality would, let's say if reality would, let's say reality is based on survival, killing, and murder
That's
and
not
stuff.
reality.
Then that would be your new morality,
No, that's
right?
not reality.
Because you base it off reality.
Reality is made of laws of physics. There's no law of physics that says kill stuff.
What are you talking about? So you don't observe the process.
Non-stupid questions.
Okay. Yeah, someone wants to hop on. You can get him up here.
The Kenneth asks, "Do you know what a falsifiable claim is?" He's asking you, I think.
Wait, he's asking me?
Yeah, he's asking you. Do you know what a falsifiable claim is?
Maybe.
How do you maybe know? Take that as a no. He does not know what a falsifiable claim is.
Wait, I said maybe, bro. Come on, dog.
You can't maybe know something.
How do you know what you know?
That's a odd question, because knowledge is a justified true belief. So do you have a justified true belief that you have a justified true belief? That's a stupid question.
It's not.
It is. So like a justified true belief is a belief that has some kind of thing that increases the probability that it's true, and it happens to be true. Now, if you ask yourself, is my belief a justified true belief? Your belief can't be true. You can't have a true belief of your belief. It doesn't,
unless you presume something. Right?
No, because truth is that which corresponds to reality. So beliefs don't correspond to reality. Like if you're talking about does my belief correspond to reality? Well, no, in the sense that if you're thinking of it, it's literally just something in your head. So if you're asking, how do I know that I know? You're asking, how do I have a justified true belief about my justified true belief?
I said, how do you know what you know?
Yes. What is how do you know anything? What is the definition of know?
What?
Justified true belief. So
yeah.
How do you have a, when you ask, how do you know that you know, you're asking, why, how do you have a justified true belief about a different justified true belief? And
exactly.
Right. So if there's one fact, let's say the world is round, that is a true fact. And I have a belief about that fact, and it's justified by evidence. And now if I want to ask, how do I know that I know that fact? So I have a justified true belief the world is round. And so you're asking me, how do I have a justified true belief about the belief part of that sentence? So I have a justified true belief the world is round. My belief is the world is round, and you want me to have a justified true belief about that belief. But that belief isn't a truth statement. It's just, I have this belief. So that belief statement can't be true. So you can't have knowledge about your knowledge. It doesn't make sense. How do fortune cookies work? Fortune cookies work by magic and potatoes.
Wait, T-Jump. So T-Jump, I just want to counter like the morality thing you made before. So you base it off reality.
Question. Yes, reality.
Yeah. So that means if reality is the grounds of morality, then why don't people all share the same morality?
So is light based on reality?
What do you mean?
Light.
Is light.
Does light exist in reality? It is a thing in reality.
Yes.
Why don't people see the same thing all the time?
Based on their personal experiences?
Sort of. Close. Not quite right, but close.
Yeah.
So people, like, some people are blind. Some people have color blindness. Some people can see an extra color. Some people only have one eye. Some people have different cones, so they can only see different colors. Some people have synesthesia. Even though light is an objective thing, people see different things. So your question is stupid, because even if morality is an objective thing, that wouldn't mean everybody's going to see morality the same, just like they don't see reality as the same. That's not how it works.
I know, but the fact is you can't, like, T-Jump, right? Like going against reality wouldn't exist, right? You can't go against reality.
Your brain is evidence to the contrary. You can go against reality all you want. Literally, religion. That's all religion. All advertising is just going against reality. Gambling, going against reality. There are lots of things that go against reality. Stupid question.
No, but like you know, if you can think again, you can think outside reality.
Yes, you can believe false things. That is correct.
Yeah, but like,
Anybody
you like
else have
physically go against
non-stupid
reality?
questions? Can you jump?
Yes, I have something like
Yes.
yeah, I have
Go ahead.
something like
Go ahead.
to the other guy. Like, please, like I'll give you an example, okay? Like the example that I thought of the other day. So the truth is there is a quote unquote truth. For example, you have a car, you can stand on a highway, a car can approach you at 100 kilometers per hour. There are characteristics that you see when the car collides with you. We know that based on the effects of gravity, friction, all of that stuff, if the car collides with you at 100 kilometers per hour, the truth is you are going to die. You can deny that all you want, but it is still going to remain the truth. Maybe if you take an X-ray camera or like an infrared camera, sure, you can see some aspects of reality that you can't otherwise see, but the truth is you're still going to die. That is the truth. So that is sufficient, right? You don't need absolute certainty for knowledge. I was responding to the other guy, actually.
Yeah, I was.
You was wrong. You meant me.
Yes, he meant you.
Yeah, you. Yep.
Is Poochie?
You don't need
Is
absolute.
Poochie here? Can he talk? Because I'm not hearing him. Nope. Okay.
He
Not
left. Yeah. No, I think he's gonna rejoin. So Abe God. So you said like you don't need absolute certainty for knowledge.
Correct.
What do you mean by that?
By that I mean, if you drive a car, right, you have a driving instructor that teaches you how to drive a car. You don't need to know all the mechanistic processes behind the car or like how the atoms are configured for you to drive the car. You can still learn from the driving instructor and you can still drive the car. So you don't need absolute certainty to drive the car.
Okay, but Abe God, would you agree that the truths are already there?
Sure, independent of your beliefs, yes.
Yeah. So would you think that truth is always there? Always.
Yeah, obviously. There has to be some truth independent of your beliefs.
Yeah. So when we think about absolutely certainty, I mean, sure, we don't need that. We need absolute.
No, you don't need that, right? Like I don't need to know every aspect of quantum fields in order to like make a new computer program. I just need to learn coding. I can still make it. I don't have to understand about how quantum fields work, right?
Sure, but does that mean that quantum fields don't exist?
No, it does not mean that. I'm saying with approximate knowledge, I can still have a working model of reality.
You're debunking
That's with almost anything.
Cause you're debunking yourself.
Exactly.
Because your argument was your question was how can people go against morality, right? That was your question. If morality is a part of reality, how can people go against morality? The same way they go against everything else. They have false beliefs. If they have a false belief.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I agree with you. Like the belief. Okay. Yeah, but like I'm trying to say, if they physically do something within reality and then go against reality, would that be possible? Yes,
because morality isn't a law that literally physically binds you to stop you from physically acting. It's not what the moral law is.
So you do believe that we can like transcend nature? We can like transcend it. So wait. So I mean, I guess I'll just.
Do we have less stupid questions?
Brian's gonna come in here, by the way.
Logan, do you have a less stupid question?
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah, what's your question?
Yeah.
What?
I have a present for y'all.
Next. Brian, do you have a less stupid question?
Brian, by the way, you have to like turn off T-John's camera and then turn it back on. Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
Do you have a less stupid question?
Trump? T-Jump. I thought you were Trump.
Hi.
You guys all believe in no God, right? Atheist, is that what you mean?
I'm an atheist, yes.
That means you believe in no God.
Right.
Right?
Yep. Do you have a question?
If you don't believe in no God, then you shouldn't believe in logic.
What? That sentence did not make sense.
As I'm saying, if you don't believe in God, you should not have any logical thinking.
If reality exists,
do you think you have logical thinking?
We have a logical thinking. So if reality exists and God does not exist,
but that you're contradicting yourself.
No.
If you're saying that you have logical thinking, then you don't.
Stop. Reality exists. There's no God. If reality exists, reality is itself. So even without a God, Reality exists. Reality is itself. That's the law of identity. Therefore, with no God, you still have logic.
So Brian, well, what he meant by that is like reality exists, therefore logic and all of the other stuff is all of the other stuff is grounded in reality. So you don't need anything else.
Brian, you there?
Yeah.
You don't have more questions?
Yeah. By the way, actually, Tijam, I actually wanna know. I don't know who made that claim. By the way, that you can have logic without God.
Of course, you can have logic without God.
No. So wait. So
But
what do we
my
operate?
question,
We operate.
my question
We operate
is
on
that you
frequency,
said
light, energy, matter. So what do you use to like remember stuff? What do you use to have these reactions in your brain so you can notice
Magical potatoes.
think?
Anybody else have any non-stupid questions?
Magical potatoes.
Autumn, do you have any questions? Do you have a question for us?
Yes. Excuse my voice, by the way. I'm really sick today. So my question to you, TJ, I'm unfamiliar with you on the server if you're like on social media or anything like that. So I apologize, but so where I stand in terms of like the God belief is, I'm a Christian first and foremost, but I was wondering if hypothetically that there actually was a God, and like let's expect in this short conversation that God does exist. Do you think that God is an uncaring God if he does exist because he allows evil or mishappenings to people, or is it a God that's not all powerful?
Well, I'd say it's immoral. So I'd say like a deistic God would be uncaring, but I'd say any God who created a world like this would be immoral, objectively immoral for doing so.
So what do you say to the question on ethical morality and philosophy, on what is the true good in people or the true evil in people?
I'm a moral realist.
And how do you come to that conclusion?
So I'm a moral realist. I believe in objective morality, like most philosophers who are also mostly atheists. Phil Survey's paper, like 70% of academic philosophers are atheists. 65% believe in objective morality without God. So you don't need a God for objective morality. And if you want my specific model of morality, you can go to my website, churchofthebestpossibleworlds.org, and there's a section, True Objective Morality. You can just read my entire view of morality there.
Okay.
But the fact is that you cannot explain many objectivity with objectivity. You cannot explain that. For example, which comes first, chicken or chicken egg? How can you explain this with objectivity?
We can answer that. So that can actually be answered. We know for a fact the egg comes first because the DNA that forms the shell of the egg is the DNA used in the sperm and egg cell of the chicken. And so the species that preceded the chicken, which laid the egg, was actually not a chicken. And so the egg came first, then the chicken came first.
Is that objectivity? Did you see that? Can people see that? But how does DNA? Where does DNA come from?
We can prove that.
Where does DNA
we can
come
prove that.
from?
That's a stupid question. We can prove that.
How to prove that?
I don't know if you have any source for that, but let's see.
The DNA.
You need to look up
abiogenesis. If you look up the DNA, we can do DNA tests on the egg and a DNA test on the chicken, and the DNA forms in the egg from the reproductive cell. And so the reproductive cell, the way evolution works is the reproductive cell is a newer, updated species. And so the egg, which is a part of the new cell, is the first thing. The chicken egg comes before the chicken. And the species that laid the egg was not a chicken. So based on evolution, the egg came first.
But okay, so what comes before the egg?
What
comes before the egg?
Different
How does? What specific?
No, that
I
kind of
mean,
does line up if you look at evolutionary theory. It just kind of makes sense that the egg would come first. Now that I think about it, it's not that complex of a question. I don't know why the conversation went in that direction. That was kind of irrelevant. But my question about your moral philosophy, you said you're a moral objectivist, or
Realist.
I forget what you said. I'm not familiar with that philosophy.
Moral realism, that's the position.
Okay. My problem with something like that is when we look at moral philosophy or just ethical philosophy in general, we're looking at the philosophical perspective of men and women. We're not looking at anything that based on their experience in their lives and what they've been able to learn in their experience, but there's not much objective truth in it. I mean, because I'm gonna pull this weird juxtaposition, and it's gonna be kind of silly, but forgive me for that. When you have a person who believes that murder is good, and you take a person who believes that murder is bad, you can't. The only reason why we see the person that is a murderer as bad is because of the laws and the powers that be in our country or in cultures that decide whether or not murder is bad. I think that in terms of how humans perceive morality is based off of their cultural and socialization in their culture. I don't think it has anything to do with like a deeper philosophical view.
Okay, I disagree. I think that the evidence of moral progress over every culture and every species going in the same direction, independent of culture, seems to show that there are some more fundamental aspects guiding morality outside of cultural shifts, because if it was just cultural shifts, you wouldn't expect there to be a consistent pattern across all cultures and species.
The difference is that humans have.
There's no difference.
I don't know.
Humans.
I don't know what to call. I'm not gonna call it consciousness because I feel like that's a silly thing to say.
So there isn't a difference between humans and animals. Animals follow the same moral patterns as humans. They're just less advanced. So morality is also present in animals.
I guess that's the phrase, is that we're more advanced, but at the same time, it's like, how can you explain behaviors of different cultures, whether it be fiction or not?
They all follow the exact same pattern. So as technology and resources increase, every single culture begins to see things that were required but were impositions on people, like killing people or sacrificing people or whatever. As we gain resources and we no longer think those are required, we begin to see them as immoral. And that's a consistent pattern throughout all cultures. And that pattern, if it was just societal based, there's no reason for it to be the case in all cultures. You would not expect to see that. So the fact that we see that in all cultures everywhere in the world is indicative of the fact that it's not culture driven.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. So, I don't know, because one of the things that I've observed through, I guess, different cultures is there's different levels of aggression and progression of their society, and there's certain, I don't want to call it tribes, but like tribes of people, I guess the word is, who believe in a certain way, and then there's other tribes that believe in a different certain way.
Sure.
And whether or not we perceive that is wrong is inconsequential to the actual truism of that culture. The only reason why that we perceive it as wrong or bad is because of the culture I've said before.
Sure. So different cultures have different agricultural strategies, right? The way they harvest and plant food. And some,
if you want to identify it as that, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
And some are objectively better than others. Like we know for a fact, if you harvest the same plot of land every year without replacing I think it's nitrogen, it'll deplete all of the nutrients in the soil and all the crops will die. And so we have to take certain areas of land and give them a break so they can regenerate their nitrogen content. And so the cultures that implement that strategy have a better strategy for harvesting food than other cultures. So one is better than the other. And so even though they all disagree about how to do agriculture, there is an answer. There is an objective answer. One is right. So the fact that they disagree, who cares? Who cares if they disagree? That doesn't matter. What matters is there an objective answer? That's what we're interested in. Whether different cultures disagree, like, who cares?
That's kind of the problem, though. If nobody cares, then who's to say that the progression that they are going towards is going to be either the detriment or the fulfillment of that society?
Who cares? What matters is objective truth. So
That's
if
not the
there's
answer. Okay.
like, if for something, moral realism is the position that morality is true, independent of opinion. No one's opinion matters. No one's culture matters. Whether or not everyone dies doesn't matter. There is a fact of morality independent of all humans, all consciousnesses.
Dude, nihilism is cringe. Okay, see you later. Bye.
Nihilism? I agree. I'm not a nihilist.
So I think, with only, if you don't believe in God, you just don't have a high morality. Because you believe only in objectivity,
That makes no sense. So God drowned babies. So you probably shouldn't go based off the morality of a God. Yes, I believe in objectivity. Truth is objective, means it's true, independent of opinion. That's what objectivity is, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. Walker, what is up? You have a question?
No, I was trying to come in here and help.
All right. Sounds good.
Some of those questions were painful.
Yes. Very painful.
Did I ever ask you my question about whether or not you prefer to use the laws of logic versus the laws of thought when you're describing this topic when it comes up?
You have asked that before. I don't remember. I think they're synonyms for the most part.
Yeah, that was my understanding, is essentially that the Greeks viewed the way the brain worked as in discrete chunks, essentially. A is equal to A, even if you start with self and not self. So when someone was describing what is now called the laws of logic, they called the laws of thought because you were simply describing how you think.
Yeah, I think there's no value either way. You call it what you want to call it. I don't think it matters. Programmer Queen, he only drowned the origin, right? Drowned the sinful babies. Well, I don't think origin matters at all. Genetic.
Well, that's what they were asking. Like, where does logic come from? Because the argument is it comes from God. So
okay, so
your mic is just
you can just respond.
Oh my God, your mic is completely broken. You need to fix your mic completely.
Yeah, so Walker, you can just respond to that by saying that reality exists, right? So therefore your thoughts exist. It cannot not exist if reality exists. So you don't need God for that. I can even insert magic pineapples or magic pixies, magic bunnies, anything that you want, right? So God is just one of them.
I think Walker was saying that the origin of logic was the Greeks who made up logic.
Yeah, potentially.
Well, you could say they refined it, right? And they identified certain undeniable components. And they kind of had an understanding of even cogito ergo sum, even back then. They just had it in competition with Platonic forms and ideals.
Is your mic fixed now?
It's still trash.
Yeah, you need to like turn the volume down like a lot.
Maybe move it away from your mouth.
Carlos, you have to do.
So I guess
accept invite to join the stage.
Like, I guess, T-Jump, I did have a quick question that I was having a debate the other day with one guy, and we were talking about like quantum fields, right? Like how it is fundamental and it is based on the best evidence we have. And then I just want to confirm this with you. So there has been this recent Nobel Prize that scientists actually won, right? Like they proved that the local universe is not real. So then he was trying to use that point to contradict all the other stuff that we know, that he's saying that all of the objective facts and science are not true. So how do you
Nobel Prize that the local universe isn't real? I have not heard this.
You've not heard this? It's actually a very big news.
Which one?
They won the Nobel Prize and shit.
What's the Nobel Prize for?
Hey, God, are you talking about clamps?
What?
Are you talking about clamps?
No, I don't know what you mean.
That was me, bro. I was talking about local. I was talking about the local universe.
You have not won a
No, it was not. It was not you. So what? They did not win it.
So
because I think.
So
Yeah.
there was a Nobel
Continue.
Prize in physics for experiments with entangled photons establishing the violation of Bell inequalities. Does not prove the local universe is not real.
Wait, just type the local universe is not real. Just Google that and you will get the results from Scientific American. There is no academic journal published on this yet, but still, the reason I suspect this is because there is the Nobel Prize that is won. There was a lot of talk about this.
Yes. No,
that's
that
just a category error. That non-locality thing.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with, like, when that says real, that means that there are certain properties that aren't like spin and things that aren't instantiated. It has nothing to do with it actually existing. Local universe actually exists. This is complicated philosophical language. Has absolutely nothing to do with the conversation of logic.
It's a known factor in quantum mechanics that you can't specify one of the two terms precisely without the other term just going off into infinity. And that's been a thing that's been known for a while. This particular study showed that it works up with every particle, not just things that are interacting at the quantum level. So if you decide to change the level of analysis of what you're talking about, then yes, local reality is not real. But you don't exist in local reality at that point. We aren't part of that conversation.
Well, so the question is how do you think, how is he using this to counter the idea that quantum fields are fundamental? Because this has nothing to do with quantum fields being fundamental or not.
Oh, so I'll tell you what he tried to actually counter me with. So he was actually telling me that because the local universe is not real, like he was using the literal terms there. He was saying that classical objects depend on quantum objects depend on classical objects because you have to make the measurement in order for the the quantum realm to exist or something. I don't know what he exactly said, but he said that there is a dependency. So that means reality is not real. Like the instruments could make false conclusions, but it is still dependent on the measurement.
Yeah, so he's just using the terms wrong. So if you just read in the article, it says, locally real particles may lack properties such as spin up or spin down prior to measurement. That's all it means. That's all it means. It has nothing to do with them actually existing. It's completely...
So he's actually saying that each different instrument is actually producing a false result because it is dependent on the measurement of that instrument.
None of that is relevant. So he's just using the word locally real as actually existing, which it doesn't mean that. Locally real just means may not. Locally real means it has to have a spin up or spin down prior to measurement, and it may not. And that's all it means. So that's it. It has nothing to do with...
And what about...
What?
And what about the counter to this question? Like they say that if there is a tree that falls down in the forest and you are the observer and you observe that thing happening, then it is actually happening. But what if you are not there? What if there are no observers? Does the tree still fall?
Yes, still falls. This has that non-locality has nothing to do with that question. Absolutely nothing. The local universe just means all of those particles have a spin up or spin down. That's all it means. We don't care. It doesn't make a difference. It makes zero impact on the physical world as we interact with it. No impact.
Like the falling and stuff.
Yes, it's still going to fall, still going to make a noise, has zero impact whether or not the particles may have spin up or spin down prior to measurement. Irrelevant entirely.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to know. I think he was using the terms wrong, claiming that the universe is not real, it's all an illusion and stuff like
Yes, most likely.
Wait, I want to go.
A pretty good video for this.
Abe God, I always wanted to talk to you about the illusion part thing. Like the thing is like, where do you think illusions come from?
perception problems, like optical illusions.
Perception. Would you entail it to the brain cells at all, or to your brain?
Yeah, the overall processes that happen in your brain, sometimes it causes you to arrive at false conclusions, right? Like hyperactive agency
Sure.
detection. Lots of examples.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Where would you originate consciousness from?
Reality.
So
Yep.
reality as a whole, but it doesn't. Consciousness doesn't need any perception involved with it.
No,
consciousness
consciousness
is perception. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, so you agree with me then, Abe God? Or
No, I mean to say that consciousness, yes, it's information processing. You need like input information from the external environment, and then there is flexible response mechanism that responds to the external information. When the information processing happens, then consciousness is activated. That's how it works.
So you would agree that then you would agree that it's consciousness that is giving us these illusions.
Yeah, it's possible, some illusions, but we can fix them by using tools.
They're specifically known as cognitive biases, and there's like 200 of them that you can look up about ways we process information wrong, which is why it becomes so so important that we carefully use the logical forms to correct for that.
Okay, sure. Okay, so I just want to like get that clear. So, consciousness is consciousness reality, like a part of reality?
Yes, it's a feature of reality. Emergent.
As much as our consciousness, like as much as we are part of reality, then yes, there is consciousness in reality, but it doesn't go the other way.
Isn't our brains like formed out of energy and stuff, and like other stuff?
Everything is formed out of energy. So what?
Yes. So you guys agree?
But where does the energy come
is
from?
objective. Energy is an objective factor, right?
Yes.
Energy exists. Yes, that's an objective fact.
So
I don't think.
Yeah,
Do you think energy is objective? Can you see that? Can you touch it? No.
I mean, but this energy is on the body, on our brain. We
Well,
touch our body.
we are matter. Yes.
Yeah.
And matter and energy are interchangeable. So what?
But how about conscience?
Conscience is what our brains do.
Yeah, so there are some theories about consciousness.
It comes from the brain. It's what a brain does.
Yeah.
It's like walking comes from legs.
Yeah, so Brian, there are like theories about like consciousness being derived from the brain. So
cool story.
But where's the brain come from? And okay, so you said you just said conscious comes from brain, but I'm asking you, where does the brain come from?
Brains are made of matter.
Where does the matter come from?
Where do you think matter comes from?
Big Bang.
Where is the brain matter from?
Well, so the matter. Well, matter. Wait, Brian.
We
so
already
matter,
answered the question, which means you're not listening. We said energy and matter are the same thing, and energy can't be created. So why are you asking the same question over again?
Yeah, we can't explain that, but I think maybe once like a deep explanation, like how like matter came into existence.
The question implies that there's an answer, when the answer that we know of so far from our position and data and evidence is that energy can't be created. So it's like asking where did energy come from over and over again is a stupid question. It's counterfactual to the evidence.
Energy is kind of like what you think of as God. Who created God? Well, he can't be created. He's a necessary being. Energy is the necessary being. Uncreated. Wasn't created.
It's one of the greatest mistakes in philosophy is that people thought that the universe needed a prime mover.
But there is no logic.
The natural state of the universe is dynamic,
if
static.
you believe in logic, then you.
I don't believe in logic. I am logic. My brain, my thoughts are functional and discrete. They are discrete thoughts. They think in A equals A. That is a description of ways that we think. So as long as there's thinking, logic exists.
But when I was asking where does the brain matter come from, you said
it's matter.
You can answer. You cannot answer. Where is the logic? Logic. What is logic? Logic
is how brains think.
Let's
thinking
see, like,
emerges from matter.
Like what? Like I think maybe asking like
is the appropriate and correct reasoning. Okay.
No,
Brian, are you asking?
You're talking about logical. No, Brian. You're talking about logical forms. You're talking about logical forms. You're talking about how one uses it, not where it comes from.
Yeah, I think that's what he meant. Like, how do you form like your thoughts and stuff from this matter?
I don't form them; they form. I'm not in control of the formation of thoughts. None of us are.
Wait, so you don't like? So your dreams don't form?
Not by our choice, no. Subconsciously, 95% of all of your cognitive load, if you go under a functional MRI, is your subconscious.
Yeah, sure.
Only 5% of what you think of as you is there.
Yeah, so sure. So subconscious. So it was formed by subconscious.
If you really believe in logic, then
I don't believe in
have to
logic. That's not the
understand
words I
reasoning.
used. Those are the words you used. Start using my words. If you're going to talk to me about logic, use my description, not your own straw man.
He walked out, bro.
That's better. That's good. Get some distance from the conversation. Think things through. Ruminate a little.
He got sandwiched. He got sandwiched.
Is he a troll?
Looks like he needs a couple sandwiches.
Yeah, he got
this.
sandwiched.
Simple question.
Yeah,
where
that's
does this
sandwich,
come
bro.
from? Where does the
That's a
orange
sandwich.
come
Somebody, boy, get
I'm
that boy a
asking.
double cheeseburger, man. Come on, holy shit. He turned sideways. He almost disappeared.
So Brian will argue
No,
like
okay,
troll.
but Brian, I don't know what you're trying to get at. You know, I don't understand what you're trying to get at.
It's a common theistic argument.
He's just asking where everything came from,
Well-
right? Like if you ultimately reverse everything, we know that we know the law of thermodynamics. Like energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So, yep, that's your answer. Eternal.
Well, so Brian,
For example, where does this orange come from?
Brian,
This orange
matter.
come from where?
It's matter.
From the tree, right? From the tree.
No,
Where does
it's
the
matter.
tree come from?
It's matter.
Yeah, matter. Yeah, matter, energy.
But where does the matter come from?
It doesn't come from anywhere. We've already answered this question.
Oh my
So
god!
stop playing
Existence.
pretend. Start studying physics.
Matter,
It's pre-existing.
reality, nature, uncreated. They were created by nothing. Nothing created them. They are better than your God.
We see no reason to think that there's anything that creates energy. Energy doesn't appear on any level to be created. It's the first law. And energy and matter are the same thing. They're just in different forms. That's all matter is just energy in a different form.
So basically, you are saying that there's
Energy
no
exists.
explanation. There is no explanation for how the energy came into existence.
It did not.
That's what you're saying,
No,
right?
you didn't even listen at all. We're saying that the evidence indicates that that's a stupid question because there's no evidence it came from anything.
Wait, Walker,
So you
I
have to stop asking stupid questions.
Walker, I want to tell T-John something. Antangelo wants to come on.
I see that.
Yes, let's increase the brain capacity of the stage.
Antangelo, you gotta like turn off the cameras.
Let me ask you this question.
Are you going to ask the same question over again?
No, not the same anymore. How come those most influential scientists in the world history all believe in God?
They don't.
Tell me.
They don't.
Tell me this.
They don't. That's a
Einstein
lie.
Did not believe.
Matter of fact, they're very clear. They believe
Einstein,
they
Newton.
were very no. That's a lie.
Look.
That they were very
That's
clear.
not
They
a lie.
believed in what.
I'm not lying.
Yes,
That's
it
a
is.
fact.
If you will stop talking, I'll explain it to you. It's something you could have looked up instead of having somebody on the internet prove you wrong. They were very clear that they believed in something called Spinoza's God, which was the anthropomorphic idea of there being a first cause. They did not believe in what you or any theist would call God. That is a flagrant equivocation that everyone makes. Go look up what they actually said, not what you've heard from your pastor.
Einstein, Newton.
Spinoza's God. Look up what they meant when they said Spinoza's God. That is the answer to your question, and whether or not you ask the question again is dependent on your fear, of looking it up. Right now, you're displaying too much fear.
I notice you have an attitude.
You're not looking it up.
Those people who believe in God and those people who do not believe in God, there is a difference between these two people, because people who believe in God, they have an attitude of being humble, because
that is a lie. Theological narcissism is a real thing.
Morality level.
Theological narcissism is a problem, and it creates trauma to people who leave the religious environment. There is mental health experts dedicated to help theists overcome the damage from religion.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. You're talking about religious trauma syndrome. You're talking about that.
Yeah, religious trauma syndrome.
Okay, then
because when you take scripture seriously, it traumatizes you and damages reality or society around you.
Let me give you another fact. America is the greatest.
Another fact. How about you start with one?
The USA. let me finish. The USA is the greatest country on the planet Earth. And
no,
the
not
USA
even close.
has
There's nothing about
people,
the USA
most
that
people,
is even
let me-
high
let
on
me
any
finish.
metric right now.
Let me finish.
Maybe
Let me
people
finish.
incarcerated in jails.
Most
Why would I
American
let you finish
people
if you
believe
lie?
in God.
Don't start with a lie. Come on,
I'm
man.
just
You're not
giving
gonna...
you facts.
No, you
If I
started
give
with a
you
lie.
facts,
The U.S. was grounded on Enlightenment ideals. What it is nowadays is nothing like what it once was. And the Enlightenment was very big
let me
on
recommend you
secular
a good
morality.
product to make your head stand up. You don't have to use your hand to move that.
So I think quick interjection, like Brian's were like when you said that, like like people who believe God are actually humble. Statement is false, right? Like if you are actually humble, you should be humble enough to accept the different hypotheticals and facts in the universe and know that there could be other possibilities aside from God. But you guys always seem to be arrogant, right? So that is not humble in any.
This guy.
So,
it's actually counterfactual to what humility is.
Antangelo, what do you got for us?
Antangelo,
give us.
His mic wasn't working. He tried to talk.
No, he just had the background so unrelated. Also, I don't think he was broken. Antangelo, do you got a question? Philosophy stuff.
You got to give them some help, I think.
Hey, Tangelo, try joining on the PC. It'll probably work if you join on the PC. It's probably a mobile issue.
Yeah, mobile issue.
No. He not join. He can just. He has to turn off the cameras, then it will just pop up. And Tangelo, your mic is low, bro.
I don't even see.
So the reason why atheists do not have as high morality as those who believe in God is because people who don't believe in God they know everything, but in fact they don't. Those people who know the fact they don't know everything,
the actual data on
they
the
have
subject,
something to
the
look
less
up to.
religious a society is, the better it is. And that's the facts. Look it up.
America's like 30th in education, healthcare, quality of life.
Religion is a cancer on society. It is not anything to be appraised.
When people know that they know everything, they don't even need to know, they don't have anything to look up to. They know everything.
Yeah, but
they are more likely to be conceited. And
so atheists are more likely to admit they don't know. It's religious people who are more likely to think they know things they do not. So Dunning-Kruger effect. Do we have any non-stupid questions? Eventually, hopefully, at some point today, non-stupid questions would be great.
See, this is your attitude. This shows the fact that you don't have a high morality because you call me stupid.
No, I called your question stupid.
You atheist people, should improve yourself by believing God, because only by believing God can you improve.
This guy's got to be a troll. He can't be serious.
I doubt it.
See those communist people, those communists. Communism.
Yep, he's a troll.
Communists don't believe in God. They only believe communist people like you guys. I live in China. I'm a Chinese. I live in China. My government is a fucking communist government. Those people are corrupt.
You are the most religious country I have ever seen, other than North Korea. You worship the state just like North Korea. You've invented your own religion. It's embarrassing that you don't even know this.
Know what? Know what?
Exactly.
So T-Jump, if Antangelo's not like gonna talk, I'm gonna have to kind of take over with him,
Oh goody.
Yeah, so why is like T-Jump, what's like Antangelo's like usual argument?
Intelligent design, argument from ignorance. The information in life can't be produced by a mind because we've never seen it being produced by a mind, therefore must be produced by a mind.
Also, like his argument is like the design we would like how we're designed, it has to be from a mind. It has to be someone that's intelligent.
Oh, yeah, information can't be produced by anything other than a mind or useful information. That was his argument.
So information can't be produced by can't be not produced by information. It has to be produced by information.
That was not a coherent sentence.
So I'll just make it better. I'll just make it like more sense. Not I will make it more sensical. You know. So information has to. So for information to produce information, there has to be information.
No. So for
Is that way?
Useful information can only be produced by a mind. That's his argument.
Okay, sure. I understand why that.
Point. That's actually an interesting point. You need to understand first.
You are incredibly quiet.
Yeah, your mic is very low volume.
My microphone. Let me check here.
Yeah, your mic is low, Angelo.
Okay, just a minute.
There are demos and tests that you can do to make sure your mic is working before you ever get on here.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
is it better now?
Yes, it is better now.
Okay. Yeah, so I think you made an interesting point. Before you can even generate information, you need a language and understand the meaning of the words and the language in order for you to generate information. And you need also a convention between at least two people or intelligent beings, or something that is capable to understand that convention, and then you can actually transmit it from A to B, and then you have the sender, the receiver, the transmitter, and that is an interdependent system which has to be established right from the beginning in order for you to even use information.
Language is not linguistic, which means nothing you said mattered. You can't fuck up the very first thing and expect 5 minutes later for anything you've said to make sense.
I didn't understand your criticism.
Information is not linguistic.
Okay, when I am saying information in the realm of genetics, then I'm meaning instructional assembly and operation.
Whatever private language you want to invent doesn't matter. How about you stick to common parlance so that we're both talking about the same thing at the same time? You can go live in your own little world. Most people probably want you to. But if you're going to share our reality, we have to have a common vernacular. So we're going to hold you to our common vernacular.
Okay, I said that in order for you to use information, you need, and with that I mean instructional assembly information which can be conveyed by signs and codes. You need a convention of meaning between the sender and the receiver so that this information can be shared between the two agents. Do you agree with that?
Wittgenstein said we all have a private language. So yes, I agree with that. We start with our own private language.
Okay, so what we see in the living, in cells, is precisely this situation where you have a sender, which is the information stored in DNA, and there is the receiver.
DNA is not sending information.
Okay, DNA stores instructional assembly information, which is transmitted to transcription and translation. And then the ribosome is the translator, which can interpret the information.
That is an analogy. It is not translating.
No, well, it actually is.
You can't use metaphor and expect it to make sense. Come on, man. Stick with the program.
Well, it is actually in a literal sense translating information because
it is not in a literal sense translating.
Yes, it is.
No.
You don't understand what is.
Yes, I do. You're using a metaphor and trying to pretend you're not.
Okay, what is the function of the genetic code?
Who says it has a function? It is a thing. It does what it does. It self-replicates.
I did ask you a question. Please.
Yes, and I just answered it, and you didn't understand a single thing I said, did you?
No, you don't understand.
The DNA is a chemical code. Yes, it's a chemical reaction. It is an ongoing chemical reaction. We call it a code because we can see sequences as it, but it's not a code. It's still just, and it's no more a code than H2O is a code.
Yeah,
it's
you
just
don't
how we describe chemicals.
Yeah,
And
you don't understand molecular biology. That's
yeah, because everything isn't chemical. That's bravo
Yeah,
on Tangelo. You've
you
just
have no
disproven
clue.
all of biology that says all biology is chemical reactions.
Yeah, you are bullshitting. You don't understand.
Yeah, all of biology is chemical reactions. Well done, Antangelo. You've disproved all of science. Way to go, man.
Okay, so is life based on chemistry and information? Yes or no?
No, it is based off of chemistry.
You don't
It's
understand
all
shit.
chemistry.
Yeah,
What
you
you
don't
want to then
understand
call that
shit.
individual chemistry, you want to call H2O water, you go right ahead. It's
You
still at the
don't
base level
understand
chemical.
the
You want to
shit
invent
about
this extra special
biochemistry.
thing and call it energy and add it to the system. That's just
You
your
don't
imagination because
understand
you
the
need that
shit
comfort blanket.
about biochemistry. You have no clue what you're talking about.
Life is chemical. Deal with it.
What is the function of DNA?
Life is chemical. DNA is what we call a repeating chemical. That's it. That's all we call it.
You have shit of understanding of biochemistry. None.
That's
Zero.
all DNA is. They are
Wait,
repeating chemicals.
You are a
Antandra, I gotta
Dunning-Kruger.
disagree with you on this one, bro.
Yeah, you are a Dunning-Kruger which doesn't know shit about biochemistry.
The projection is strong with this one.
No, it's not, because I actually know
All
what
life
I'm
is
talking
chemical.
about.
Deal
You are
with it.
not.
At least read a book or something, man. Come on.
Walker, you are just bullshit.
Thanks. If only my self-esteem was established by the random opinions of people online.
I think Antangelo was right on that one. So there is actually DNA does have a function. Function is a real word in biology. And there is functional, different kinds of things, functional proteins, functional DNA, functional RNA, functional peptides. And so it does have a function, but the definition of function in biology is slightly different than the definition of mechanical function or purposeful function.
Yep. Well, I kind of knew that. I wasn't going to give any ground because he's just trying to equivocate from the very beginning.
So I kind of disagree with what Antangelo said before. You know, I kind of disagree on that. But like for example, I'll make a better example. For example, when we make our computers, right? When we make our PCs, we make them and we put information into those PCs. We put information, data, storage, everything what a PC would need. And and if things go over that limit off that PC, then it would be destroyed. Just how if we would go over our limits of who we are as human beings, then it would destroy us, right? So I can kind of see something like that, being existent.
So what exactly is your argument about information? What exactly is your argument about information?
My argument about it, like we hold like we are intellectual, beings.
Okay.
We hold information, and that this information is just made out of reactions within the brain, and that's kind of the thing, right?
So
That's the thing.
just make this like real. Let me just make this like real clear. Like I'm quite familiar with this topic. So when it comes to information, you have to understand that information on your hard drive is nothing more than configuration of particles in a certain order, which is a physical pattern on your hard drive. So when you reconfigure this information, it is because your brain can observe the external world. It can manipulate like information units based on the observation into a certain order. When you have that, it is nothing more than a physical pattern. That's all.
But like, think about this, right? Like I'll make the baby in the womb analogy, right? So basically, when you're a baby, right? I mean, you're not conscious in the womb, right? You don't remember anything in the womb, right? But when you get out the womb, then I mean, your consciousness starts to develop, right? But saying there was a subconscious within the process of you being made would kind of not make sense, right? So there was a process of something being built, but
sure,
you didn't know the building. You didn't know the building, so
you don't need to know that. There are processes that happen throughout the universe all the time. So what is your point? Like you have clouds forming by natural processes.
So Abe God, the building is only finished when you recognize the building.
What?
Sure.
What? No.
The building is finished once recognize.
No.
So why no, T-Jump?
Recognition is irrelevant.
Tell me why it's irrelevant, please.
Because like a
Enlighten me.
biological organism forming, it finishes forming, like a bacteria will completely form into another bacteria, and nobody ever recognizes it as a bacteria. It just is.
No. I don't like T-Jump. I think I'll explain this better. So it doesn't need to be a mind. Like it could be like your body realizing its process being finished.
No, there's no,
It doesn't
there's
matter.
no realizing. There's no recognition. No realizing. No.
Why?
Because it's
I don't
irrelevant.
understand why
you don't need to realize
why-
anything.
So your body doesn't recognize pain then.
What does that have to do with a cell forming? The formation of an object is not complete when any realization ever. Just remove realization. It's complete when it's physically the correct shape.
So physically the correct shape, but there's no acknowledgement in there. It's just random.
Sure, I don't care if it's random. It's complete independent of recognition. That's the argument here. If particles randomly form into a car, the car is complete, regardless of whether anyone recognizes it as a car.
Wait, but how would it know? How would
Who cares?
how would
you
it
don't need to
how
know
would
anything.
Wait, so how would it go on being complete? Like how would it like recognize?
It doesn't recognize anything. If once an object is complete, it just is complete, and it will continue to be complete until it breaks.
Yeah, but T-Jump, I think you mean like there's a state where it stops and then it like but like there's no realization in that, because like I don't understand where you get the idea from, because if it's like how would it know it's complete?
You need to prove intentionality. You're just asserting intentionality into these inanimate processes.
Like there would be a process of it just keep going on, right? Like there has to be some kind of completion, right? And that completion.
No. There is DNA. When a cell divides, it divides and then stops. It doesn't just keep going. If it keeps going, that's cancer. There is literally a stopping point. It stops because it's physically reached the end of the reproductive process. It doesn't know anything. It doesn't realize anything. It's literally
so there's a
chain, and the chain continues, and then it gets to the end of the chain and it stops.
Okay, so there's a limit to the so there's a limit, and that's what would you call complete?
Yes, when it physically reaches the correct shape. Yes.
I mean, but something can reach its limit, but not reach the correct shape. For example, some people can deform into
yes.
some people
clearly we
differently.
have evidence of that. Yes, I can see that.
Yes.
So what?
So you base it on limits then, limitations.
No, what? It's not about limitations. It's about the ability to do things. It's physical shape.
So the ability.
Limitations don't matter. I don't care about limitations.
Energy. So energy, the ability to do work.
No, that's just energy. Stupid.
I think T-Jump, the point that he's trying to make is there some kind of continuous process? I think he's trying to get at is like we humans, we have a description of us based on all the evidence, right? Like we have a certain limit. I think a point that we reach, which we would describe at maximum as being a human being. But obviously, after we die, we disintegrate into the sand, and then still there is some kind of continuous process. But the point is like when we describe a human, the maximum description of a human would be when exactly what T-Jump described. After that point, there is no continuation, like the cells stop.
Abe God, like am I like hurting like T-Jump's head or something?
Yes.
Like he's
yes.
like
yes. Every time you ask a stupid question, it hurts my head.
Like, your questions are presupposing a lot of information, so it takes a lot of time to needle out exactly what you've assumed, so that we can actually intellectually answer the question.
T-Jump, I understand you a little bit. So haven't like over all the times to talk to you, like haven't like made one decent point or not even one decent point?
Nope, I can recall
no,
zero,
your foundation is flawed. Why
points.
would you be making decent points?
Oh, dang. Okay. Am I like that bad of a debater then, like T-Jump, or
your foundation is flawed? Yes.
I don't I don't think the issue is his foundation. I think the issue is his sentence forming capabilities and his argument forming capabilities. That seems to be a bigger issue.
You are far more generous than I am.
I would make one. I would make one last point to you. For example, a much more simpler example than human beings. Example of a plastic cup, right? You describe a plastic cup if it has a certain shape. So you have multiple cups, and those cups, the shape of those cups give you evidence of what cups look like, right? So that is the maximum description of a cup. But now if you melt the plastic cup, it takes a different form. Now you no longer call it a cup. Sure, there is a continuous process. But what I would describe as a cup at maximum is based on the previous evidence we have of what cups look like.
Dustin Taub says, yes, you're that bad. Yes.
What am I really? What really though?
Yes, that is
like,
that is what the chat is saying.
Dang. Okay. Yeah, I understand, man. Like, I understand. Like, that there might be mispronunciations within the words.
No,
and,
I don't care about the pronunciations. I want arguments that have a premise, and then another premise, and then a conclusion, and I want them to be valid. And I don't think you've ever done
like
that.
Premise 1, Premise 2, Premise 3, and then conclusion. Something like that.
Premise 1, Premise 2, conclusion, valid structure, P, if P then Q, P then Q.
So the next time I debate with you, I have to start with premises.
That would make it less stupid,
one.
yes. Much less stupid.
How about you write down, like go back, re-listen to this, write down precisely what he says, and then every time he said P, insert something, and then every time he said Q, insert something
Well,
else.
actually, I said it wrong before, but it's
oh, okay.
If P then Q, P therefore Q. Do that. Modus ponens.
Yeah, but like that wouldn't that TJ, wouldn't that like be super too? Like I could say God therefore God, right?
that
would be P therefore P, not P therefore Q.
So the way it works is like all men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal.
Yeah, I think maybe that would work, right?
Yes, that is a valid argument. Yes.
Yeah.
Now substitute your own terms for Socrates and man and mortal and do it.
Yeah, like I'm like a new debater, bro. Like I'm like new to all of this stuff, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so Tijam, I know I made like stupid analogies. I mean, the pair of stocking ones was probably the worst one, but like the baby in the womb, would that one be good for you or
no? That's not even an analogy. You're just arguing about where consciousness forms, and it does form in the womb. So in the womb, you are conscious and subconscious.
So you can't wait. So how do you not remember these stuff?
Well, you don't. It's the fact that you're conscious doesn't mean you remember it. That's stupid.
Wait, what do you mean? So you
don't.
So
stupid. Like clearly, there
I know
are mental diseases people have where they can be conscious and then they forget. It's called short-term memory loss. How do you not know this?
I know. So yeah, you can be conscious of something, but then it can go back to the subconscious. I know this. Yes.
No, it doesn't go back to the subconscious. That's stupid. Memory is a different part of your brain. If that part of your brain is damaged, you can't remember anything. Your subconscious is a different part of your brain. If it gets damaged, it doesn't work anymore.
So everyone is damaged then. Everyone is damaged. Tell me one person that knows when there was in the
I think your argument can be easily refuted. Like it's so silly it can be just refuted so easily. Like if you build a calculator, you expect hold on. If you try to build a calculator, you expect a certain output which is calculation, right? So you put the input rules of mathematics and you get the output which is calculation. But if you are in the middle process of building the calculator, can the calculator calculate at this point?
I mean, it's 50-50, so
no, it's not 50-50.
That was your dumbest argument. Your dumbest argument was that everything is 50-50 if you don't know argument. That was your dumbest argument.
Oh, dang. Like, so the pair of stockings was actually like more better than that.
Yes, it was stupid, painfully stupid, but not as stupid as the everything is 50-50 argument.
Yeah, okay. So like if like what I mean 50-50, like this, if like everything has at least two explanations, right?
Maybe.
No, there's almost an infinite number of possible explanations for things. What do you think?
He said at least. He said at least, so that infinite would qualify.
Ah, okay.
But no, so like there are brute facts that have zero explanations. Necessary beings have zero explanations.
but you can make hypotheses about these things.
Yes, you can make up infinitely many things with your brain. Yes.
Yes. So for me, I could say it's 50-50, right?
No, being able to make up infinitely many things doesn't mean 50-50. How do you get from infinity to 50-50?
Because I will say this again. I know I don't want to like hurt your brain like much more, but like I just want to say like the negatives and positive cancel out each other, and then the total would be zero.
How infinity doesn't mean negatives and positives. There can be just a positive infinity of nothing but positives. You can't get 50-50 from just saying, oh, there's infinitely many possibilities, therefore 50-50. Not
I guess Tijab, you should move to somebody new.
Okay, so like if there's infinite possibilities, then like would it be like 0 or 100 or like I don't know.
It would be closer to 0. Yes.
Okay. Thanks for enlightening me, Tijab.
Knights, what do you got? Do you have anything interesting to say, Infernal? Infernal, I can't hear you. You may have to join on PC, not on phone, because phone seems to be problems with audio.
Strong atheist. What's it called? You have to turn off the camera, then like turn it back on once again. Like if you're mobile.
Why does that happen? Actually?
I think the picture on mobile covers the join screen, and so if I have my camera on, it just covers up the join option on Discord.
Yeah, that's like some kind of layer. I don't know.
They need to fix that. Did God do that?
Just to troll people.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I agree with you, Abe God, but like this wouldn't be like 50-50. Like if I would turn off like Tijab's camera on mobile, then I could join.
51,
right? That's
50.
100.
No, there is no 50-50, right? Like if Tijab wants to remove you right now, he can do that, like 100%.
Yeah, okay, that's 100. I kind of have to change my perspective on that. Yeah, sure.
Yes, good.
Yeah, so Abe God, like you want to like kind of continue like the conversation like before,
You can ask something if you want, if you have any arguments, and then I can provide counter arguments. You can try.
Yeah, Abe God, like do you always think like my arguments are stupid, or like do I like make decent points?
Based on all the data that I have so far and all the discussions that I had so far, it seems extremely stupid, because the last time when we talked about your theistic version of God, all you did was you tried to attach some agent to this God, and then eventually you admitted that he does not have a mind. So you just literally renamed all of the stuff that we understand about the naturalistic world to a God. That's all you did. Just renaming science and natural.
There's cause and effect, right? So like,
okay, so what?
So there's cause and effect, and we can't say energy was cause. We can't like really say matter was cause.
We already answered that question, right? Like not everything has a cause, right? Like quantum fields are uncreated, energy is uncreated. Yes, so not everything has cause and effect.
Yeah, they could be self-caused.
Yeah, energy is self-actualizing, but that means that it's capable of doing things. It's dynamic on its own. It doesn't mean it came from something.
Uncaused is not the same as self-caused. Those are two different things. It's uncaused.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Energy is.
I think at this point you're just making new words.
Yeah, but like, Abe God, like you agreed yourself that science and like the whole universe thing could be God, right? You agreed on that.
No. I actually agreed that you can make a lot of shit up. You're very good at doing it.
Like, am I like a big troll? Like,
yes.
You just need to tell me.
It seems to be at some point. I do feel like you're a troll.
Wells, what do you got? You got anything on the arguments that aren't stupid?
Yeah. Were people saying before something like, the mind is just chemicals or something? I think someone said that.
I think they were talking about life. All life is chemicals or something.
Yeah, all life is chemical.
I don't think that's true. I think you can have artificial life with silicone that's not chemical. But,
well, silicone is a chemical, so I mean, this depends.
Well, like the chemical interactions could be mechanical rather than chemical, biological.
True.
I think it may
suppose
also...
at some point you could get to the point where a machine could become self-replicating all on its own. But as it stands right now for biology, that still holds.
I was talking more specifically about qualia, like consciousness.
Well, that's not what I understand qualia to be. What do you think qualia is?
I understand it to be synonymous with having an experience as to what it is like to be something.
You mean first-person phenomenological experience?
Yeah.
The only thing I have is the existence of my mind. That's it. That's the only qualia that I know of.
Do you think that that's purely physical? Like purely
It
chemical?
appears to be. Whether it is or not, I have no way of knowing. But it appears to be physical.
Like Lord, to quickly address your point, like yes, it is physical, and you can model all of the different experiences to physical processes, and they have done that already.
Sure, I mean you can.
Reality is consistent enough that we can model all of this.
So there's a guy in the chat making fun of your Australian accent. He said koalia, like the koalia.
That's funny. So, sorry, what was I? Oh yeah, so I mean whether you can model it or not, the point is that I mean I am agnostic mainly, but I lean towards sort of non-physicalism about the mind. Do you know David Chalmers' arguments?
No.
I don't think most people know arguments by the person because they stand or fall on their own without the person.
I think the internal subjective state can only be felt by, like through first person experience. But the point is, it is like still a physical process, and you can model the different experiences too. They've done this in neuroscience.
But
I've DM'd you the link.
Sure, but I don't think that that's sort of like. I mean, I can lay out the argument. The idea is that there can be two identical physical states, and one can have conscious experience and the other cannot have conscious experience. And it's logically possible for the same two identical physical states to have vast differences in phenomenological states.
Do you have examples?
Well, it's just kind of navel-gazing because we're permanently locked into only one example of what consciousness is. We're, for as far as we know, forever barred from comparing our consciousness to anyone else's to such a level that we could confirm that we're having the same experiences as everyone else. And that kind of makes any deep dive into the nature of someone else's consciousness or some other conscious experience be kind of just a waste of time. Is this guy a doctor, or does he get his gumball machine, give him a doctorate?
No, he's a doctor.
Gumball machine.
Well, I mean, he's got a PhD.
There are people that have PhDs in fairy studies. So, I mean, let's be real. That doesn't necessarily mean anything.
No, he's got a PhD.
Like, yeah, credentials don't mean anything, right? There needs to be
Look, as you said before, the argument stands on its own ground, regardless of whether he has a PhD or not. But
yeah,
the point is that look, okay, so let's say there's me, there's Billy, right? And then there's another world in which there's a physical duplicate of me, right? And let's call this Zombie Billy. And Zombie Billy has the identical physical states. So all of the same, right down to the electrons that make me up.
Okay.
The physical states are identical.
There is a problem. There is a problem in this argument, right? Like if it is a complete clone of your physical self, like all the particle configuration in the exact same order, I don't think it would be different. And you need to provide actual empirical examples of that.
I don't think it's
purely hypothetical.
No. I don't think it would be different either. But the point is that it's logically possible for the same physical states. So it's logically possible for the duplicate of me to be physically identical, but to have no conscious experience at all, such that
But again,
when actually me puts
okay,
my hand on
okay.
the stove,
The problem again,
I go,
before you continue,
ow,
the problem with
and
that
move my
argument.
hand.
Wait, hold on. The problem with that argument that you just made, you just said that it is logically possible, right? Like you again understand that people can rely on logic and arrive at false conclusions. So you need some thing that corresponds to reality. Like people found it like logically intuitive to believe that the sun revolved around the earth because it looked that way, right? But when you use the scientific method, you understand that that logic that you used is not sufficient to justify any objective truths.
Look, yes, to say something is logically possible doesn't mean that it's true. That's not the point that I'm saying. That's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is that two physical states can be identical, but the qualia can be vastly different. And so if you're going to say that there's a fact of the matter about what experience I'm having, we've got this sort of gap that
No, there is no gap. I'll just literally read the quotes from the link to the academic source I sent. Experiences are concrete phenomena that can be scientifically observed and modeled. Point 2, science can model what experiences feel like. Point 3, the epistemic gap is distinctless between a scientific model and phenomena. Neuroscience can model consciousness itself, not just its correlates. So what's your point?
model consciousness. I don't know what that means.
Yes.
Like
Mathematically.
I don't know what that means.
How do you not know what mathematically means?
I don't know what I mean. I don't know what you mean when you say mathematically model consciousness.
Do you understand what it means to model something mathematically?
Yeah, I've done it.
So you find discretes, and then you basically describe the interactions between the two of them with as high degree of precision as possible.
Yeah, but you seem to be talking about like brain states.
Yep, exactly.
Look, okay, sure, you can model brain states, whatever, but that I don't think that that's modeling consciousness.
No, that is modeling. It directly correlates.
But why should anyone believe otherwise?
Well, look, the point is that you can have brain states, and there be no consciousness at all, right? It's logically possible.
Which is, again, a useless statement. I mean, you're just navel-gazing until you actually make something that's a true statement.
But wait, what have I said that's false?
What have you said? What was false? The thing you just said?
I don't think I've said anything that's false.
You've said nothing at all. That's the kind of the point. You're deliberately not saying anything true. Therefore, what's the point?
So he said there's no logical contradiction between there being brain states without there being conscious states, and then Walker said that's I think it's a not true statement or something, or a meaningless statement or something. And then
yeah, it has no truth or falsity value to it.
Well, it's true. No, he's correct that it is true. It is logically possible that you can have brain states without mental states or consciousness states. But it's also logically possible you have a soul. And so whether or not it's possible is irrelevant. Logically possible is irrelevant.
And I also told him that
that's
it's
kind of what I
logically
was trying to
possible for
say.
us to believe.
No, but
I also told him that it's logically possible to believe that the sun revolves around the earth, but then we proved that wrong, right? So don't just rely on logic.
Well, no. Look, I'm not saying that just because something is logically possible, we should believe that it's true. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that if you're saying that there's a fact of the matter about what experience we have, right?
Yes.
Then the fact that it's logically possible for the same physical states to have vastly different conscious states seems to, and it's my intuition, and if you don't have the intuition, then that's fine. It seems to
it's your
create a little
intuition.
bit of a problem.
Yeah, your intuition does not justify any facts.
I have the exact opposite intuition in the fact that if you're claiming that these two states are precisely the same, I find it illogical to think they're not experiencing the same thing.
No. Look, I accept that they're experiencing. Look, I think that if you could replicate an exact down to the T physical duplicate of me, that duplicate would be conscious. But the point is not that it would be. The point is that it's logically possible that it might not be. Or it could have like extremely different qualia.
Why is that a
When
problem?
get
You said
hurt.
that's a problem. Why is that a problem?
Just navel gazing. Why? Yeah.
Well, the point is that, like, okay, so if I look at my shirt and I say my shirt's crinkly, right? By analyzing the physical states of the shirt, I can know that it's crinkly, right? I can look at the linen and stuff, and even things like, I don't know, finance, right? Because presumably, or to say that this society's economy is collapsing, we can look at some physical states about how much money certain people have or whatever. But the point is that if someone says, okay, this being is conscious, there's nothing that you can do by looking at the physical states that would logically entail consciousness.
Wait.
Problem of consciousness.
Wait. So, if we look at a shirt and know it's crinkly or whatever, say there's some objective measurement of crinkliness. The reason that we can measure that is because we can actually observe whatever physical property is that causes wrinkliness. The reason it's logically possible for consciousness.
No, I wouldn't say that.
What? Forget this.
What I would say is that what it means to be.
The fact it's logically possible we have a soul. It's logically possible there's some magic stuff there that produces consciousness or something. But the fact that it's logically possible there is another property that produces consciousness or something doesn't mean that consciousness isn't produced by the physical stuff. So you can have a physical brain that produces consciousness and nothing but consciousness with no extra features to it. And it produces your perception of red. And then you have that plus magic soul stuff. And so your magic soul stuff now interacts with your consciousness. And so even though the physical states are exactly the same, you can have a completely different subjective experience because the magic soul stuff is now interacting with you. And so the fact that it's logically possible that physical states can have different conscious experiences is completely irrelevant. Like, who cares? Now, if you're saying if there's nothing but the physical states, literally nothing, there's nothing, no extra soul goo or whatever, and it's only physical states, and if only the physical states exist and they are identical, can they produce multiple consciousness? I would say no, that doesn't make any sense. And so I think that's the part of your argument that's missing. When you say it's logically possible that the exact same physical states have multiple different conscious experiences, if there is a second medium, a second variable that can be changed, then it's just trivial. Of course, this physical state can have multiple different conscious experiences because the conscious experience is being mitigated by this other factor. But if you're saying that there's nothing but the brain state and nothing else affecting it, and it produces consciousness, is it possible to have two different consciousnesses? I would say no.
Yeah, okay, I agree with all of that.
Okay, so when you say it's logically possible to have the same physical state and a different conscious state, you have to clarify, are you talking about class A, where there's a physical state and some other property like magic soul goo, where it can modify consciousness, or are you talking about the category B, where it's literally nothing but the physical brain with the exact same physical states in both cases with no external factors mitigating consciousness?
I don't see what difference it makes.
No, wait. I can tell you why your brain states should be similar and common to mine, right? It won't necessarily be like a one-to-one copy, but it should at least be approximately the same. I think maybe a month back, or I think a few months back, they already released an AI system that was trained on vast amounts of data of brain scans. Okay, so the fact that we have common patterns in common patterns in the brain states. The AI was able to identify these common patterns, right? So now this AI system is able to convert your thoughts to text, thoughts to images. If you did not have common brain states with me, yeah. So how would it be able to do that?
That because I take it that when you have a certain brain state, it necessitates a certain phenomenal state. So what?
Yeah, so if you imagine the image
That's
of a banana
compatible
in
with
your mind,
both
and I
physicalism and
imagine the same.
non-physicalism.
Wait, so if you imagine the image of a banana in your mind and I imagine the same thing, we would have some kind of common brain states, which is what the AI can identify. And once it identifies that, it will reconstruct that image from your thoughts.
Sure, but
The
that's
Jennifer
compatible with
Aniston
both
neuron.
physicalism and non-physicalism about the mind.
It is still physical. It's physical.
No. I'm saying that everything you said is compatible with non-physicalism about the mind.
No, it's physical states.
By definition,
but
there would be
look.
some non-physical component in a non-physical argument. And we're simply
Look.
not including any of that. So you're adding an unnecessary variable.
Well,
Yeah,
some
we
people
never
think
claim
it's
no.
highly necessary.
adding.
I mean, I don't think that there's I don't go as far as Chalmers does. Chalmers thinks that this is sort of like that coupled with Mary's Room sort of takes non-physicalism sort of off the table. Not, I wouldn't think he'd say it completely, but he sort of thinks that it makes it very difficult for physicalism to survive. I don't take that strong a stance.
PhDs in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't take that strong a stance, but I do think that he does have some good intuition pumps.
What do you think is the problem that he is talking about that you think is a good intuition pump?
Yeah, okay, so you can have two physically identical bodies, and there's presumably a fact of the matter about what qualia they're having. But let's say one person has a sensation of pain when they put their hand on the stove and they go ow and remove it, and then the other body puts their hand on the stove and goes ow and removes it, but they don't feel any pain. Now it's logically possible for those two bodies to have the same physical states but different qualia. And if there's a fact of the matter about what qualia they have, then it has to be a non-physical fact, given that all the physical facts are the same.
Well, that's obviously wrong. I mean, it's not even possible to be right, because you're literally saying that these two organisms, identical in their layout, one of them apparently is not capable of triggering pain signals from the same action that the other one does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's stupid. If you're saying that they're perfectly identical, you can't make that argument.
What?
If you're saying that you're applying a stimulus, let's say you're going to burn the nerve endings on the end of my fingers, and you're going to burn the nerve endings on a copy of me, a perfect copy of me, down to every degree, and somehow that perfect copy is not going to be induced pain.
Yeah, it's logically possible. Yeah,
but that's the part I'm confused about. When you keep saying it's logically possible, why do you think that's relevant? Why do you think the fact that it's logically possible applies any weight or value to the argument at all? It's logically possible.
Yeah, it's logically possible.
Other than assuming that there's some hidden variable that we don't know.
It's logically possible there are magical unicorns up my butthole. What does this apply to the argument? Logical possibility does nothing in any argument other than to say there's no contradiction in the statement. So why do you keep applying the fact that it's logically possible as if it tells us?
The point is, I think this analogy here.
It's logically possible that you could be floating on a UFO right now.
So I think okay, so let's take both of those, like unicorns up your rectal, or
yes.
Yep, it's logically possible, right?
On a UFO. How would we work out if that's true or not?
Wait, who cares?
We can. Well, look, I'm getting to my point. The point is that we can look at the physical states, right? We can examine your rectal and work out if there's unicorns.
No, we couldn't because unicorns aren't physical. They're spiritual beings. So there's no physical fact that we could look at that could differentiate with our current knowledge whether or not there's unicorns or whether or not there's leprechauns up my butthole. And there's no physical fact we could look on if we're in a UFO because they're like messing with our brain. And so all the physical facts we're going to look at, we wouldn't be able to tell.
No, but I'm saying, look, okay, so if the unicorns are non-physical, then then that's fine.
I think I got your point. I think I got what your point is. Like now you said that you want to examine T-jump, right? So when you tell that you want to examine T-jump, it means that you're extending to the scientific method to perform empirical observation. When you go to that, when you go to the
wait,
when we talk about
I know the analogy you're trying to
wait,
make, but
hold on, hold on. When you talk about consciousness, can you provide an example?
Wait, stop.
Doing
Everybody
some
stop.
examination?
Everybody stop. Okay, lulls. I'm still trying to follow why you keep bringing up logical possibility as if it tells us anything of value at all. So, two physical brains, identical, and you're saying it's logically possible they have two different conscious states. Okay, so what?
Yeah,
because I can have two different identically physical, I don't know, neutrons, and one of them has the opposite magnetic polarity. It's logically possible one has the opposite magnetic polarity than the other one. So what? It is not physically, nowhere in the universe is this the case. Nowhere in reality that we know of is it the case that a neutron has a positive charge. So they're all negative charge, or vice versa. And so is it logically possible there is a neutron that is physically identical but has a positive charge? Yes, it's logically possible. It isn't the case anywhere in the universe, but it's logically possible. So what?
The point is that you can discover whether they've got a positive or negative charge by looking at the physical facts, and you can't do that with consciousness.
The scientific method, right? That's invoking the scientific method.
No. Yet we can't.
It doesn't matter. Yet. No, I'm saying in principle.
There is no in principle. You can't say in principle. You can just say yet. So like the determining
I'm saying you can't discover
factor,
that somebody has consciousness by looking at the physical facts.
Yet we will be able to.
No, it's impossible. No, it's impossible. Perfectly not logically.
No, you can't say that. That is not allowed.
Yeah, you can never say it's impossible. That's just a failure. A failure of idealism. It's always possible. It's logical. Is it logically possible we will discover consciousness by looking at physical states in the future? Yes.
Discover consciousness.
Yes, it's logically possible.
I don't know how you can
I don't need to. Stop. It's logically possible. You're done. It's logically. There is no logical contradiction.
No, I don't think.
Wait, I think what he's trying to get at is that
it's logically possible. I don't think there'd be any logical entailment from these.
I don't care. I don't care what you think. Is there a logical contradiction? P and not P.
Is there a logical contradiction?
Is there a logical P and not P?
Yeah, there would be.
No, there isn't. What is the logical contradiction?
So I'll make a better argument, right?
Like stop. Stop. What's the logical contradiction?
Yeah, the contradiction would be that there's a logical entailment and there isn't a logical entailment.
What?
That's the contradiction.
No. I never said that in my argument. My argument is very simply, in the future, we will be able to discover people are conscious by looking at physical states in their brain.
Yeah, that's impossible.
How? Where's the logical
We've done that already.
Okay, so the contradiction is that there's a logical entailment. That's what you're saying, right? You're saying that you can derive
this
logically
is no. This is not a logical entailment. It's nomenological. So it's based on the physical way our universe operates. In the physical way our universe operates, this physical state will produce consciousness. It does not mean this physical state will always produce consciousness logically. No. In a different universe, it won't.
Okay, so you can't know, at least with sort of logical necessity.
Yeah, no one's claiming that it's logically
brain states. That's what I was talking about.
But no one in science ever claims anything is logically entailed. It's not a thing in science. This is why logical possibility is irrelevant.
Okay,
we don't care.
Then you're talking past me.
Well, this is why I'm trying to get to your point about why saying things are logically possible. It's irrelevant in science. It's logically possible that the law of gravity is repulsive.
I'm not talking about science.
No, we are.
It's worth noting that this was the navel gazing we were talking about and why it's pointless.
Well, that's exactly.
I think
Stop. So when you talk about if we have two physical states and it's logically possible that the two physical brain states, which are identical, have two different consciousnesses. That's like saying, is it possible that we have the exact same physical universe, but the opposite law of gravity? Sure it is. Do we see it? No. And so the fact that it's logically possible that we completely invert one of the laws of physics, and there's no contradiction in that, is irrelevant. We don't care. The fact that, is it the case in our universe that would ever happen? The answer is no. So something being logically possible doesn't mean it's nomenologically possible given the laws of physics. So if we think that consciousness is a result of the laws of physics, In our universe, it is nomenologically impossible for two brains which are physically identical to have two different conscious experiences. Is it logically possible? Yes, you can there's no contradiction in it, but is it nomenologically possible? Is it possible given the current laws of physics? No.
Yeah, okay. No, I accept that distinction between the different modalities. And
I don't know how you would deny physical consciousness. If you suffocate a person, you can always test that in an experiment, right? He would eventually lose consciousness. So we can test that on different animals. So what else do you need to
Yeah,
know?
if you just suffocate yourself, you'll lose your consciousness. Proof. There you go. You're done.
Exactly. Experiment.
But even then, you're still barred from knowing whether or not that consciousness is the same as what you yourself are experiencing as consciousness. Like that's a permanent bar that we have so far. We don't know of any way of.
Chalmers also brought up that you sort of have this gap between physical stuff and consciousness, but there's the same gap between physical stuff and causation.
No, that's an
as
assertion.
well.
That's just a baseless assertion of someone who thinks that they're different. They start with the conclusion that there's a difference between the two.
No. He didn't start with any conclusion.
He had to. If he's going to say there's a difference between the two, he's not going off of the evidence that indicates they're the same thing.
What?
He would have had to have assumed they were different from the beginning instead of dealing with the evidence that they are the same thing. Physical and consciousness. Consciousness is physical.
You're losing me so much. I don't.
No, see, lols, like the problem is that your arguments are actually logical arguments. They are completely based on logical reasoning. Okay, it is not based on empirical stuff. So the fact that you are coming to your conclusions using just logical reasoning in the absence of empirical stuff, what that means is like your position is not rational.
It's essentially like you formed an argument where none of the premises can be validated.
What? Look,
it's like you formed an argument in which none of the premises can be validated.
No, look, I don't. Jeez, I'm so lost. Look, the point is that Chalmers says that there is this sort of gap between physical states.
There is no gap.
Which is proof he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
No.
Because
look,
even to imagine that there's a gap requires you to assume that the consciousness isn't physical. And therefore, there's a gap between the two of them. I mean, he's just stating he's assuming things from the very beginning.
And we've refuted you multiple times on each argument.
No, he's not. I mean, I think everyone assumes.
He is assuming. If you're going to claim there's a gap, there has to be two distinct things in play. Yes?
If I can't get like more than a sentence out, we're just not going to be able to have a conversation.
Absolutely. Come back as soon as you can justify the use of the term gap. And until you do...
Well, I was going to explain what I meant by gap.
I don't care what you meant by gap. Proof gap is valid. It's not like how you use it that's being asked. It's why did you use it in the first place?
What's a gap?
Lousy, I think the atheist won this one.
What gap are you talking about? What's a gap?
He says Chalmers' entire argument is based off of this perceived gap between consciousness and the brain, which is just a bald-ass assertion.
Yeah, there's a logical gap. So there's no logical entailment.
Yeah, and that's what I meant, and that's what the guy didn't let me clarify.
There's no logical entailment that gravity causes things to fall. There's no logical entailment in the weak law of...
It also mentions that there's this sort of gap as well when it comes to causation.
There's logical entailment is stuff we can imagine. It is not entailed that we imagine gravity causing things to fall, but it's irrelevant. This is why this logical possibility nonsense is just irrelevant. Logical possibility means we can imagine it. That's it. We can imagine it differently. Fantastic. We can imagine that gravity is repulsive. Fantastic. Who cares? What matters is it nomenologically possible? Is it possible given the laws of physics? The answer is no. It is not possible given the laws of physics. If the consciousness is physical and we have two identical physical states, they will necessarily have the same conscious experience. So nomenologically, it is not possible. Saying that it's logically possible just has no relevance. Like, who cares? It's logically possible gravity is repulsive. What does it have to do with anything? Why should we believe anything about the universe simply because it's logically possible that gravity is repulsive?
Like,
you don't-
like, well, I don't see, I don't
gosh.
see why you made this analogy though. Yeah, it could be possible in the future, but that's like with infinite amount of time, right?
Most people who make this sort of argumentation are arguing that because it's logically possible that there's some other component involved, therefore it's logically possible that a soul exists.
What?
That's the reason most people make this argument. Have you never
I
come
mean,
across this
Walker,
argument before?
maybe he means like.
I don't
maybe-
care. I'm telling you that when most people make this argument, that's what's being implied. Is that because there's a perceived gap, they're assuming that there's some conjoining.
Stop. So I asked him a question. Like, what is the point of you keep saying things are logically possible? What are you trying to indicate with this? Why do you keep bringing this up? What weight does this have? It's logically possible gravity is repulsive, but what can you use that fact to tell us about reality? Nothing, right? The fact that you can imagine that gravity is repulsive tells us nothing about reality. We don't care. So why is it in this case, when you keep saying it's possible that two physical states have different consciousnesses, what is this telling us about reality? Why do you keep saying that?
Yeah, so this is where Chalmers loses me a little bit. And I don't think that his I wouldn't go as far as he does, but I think what he's gonna say is something like, there has to be a fact of the matter that explains why we have one conscious experience and not another conscious experience, right? Some sort of PSR.
Sure.
And it's logically, and it's possible that all of the physical facts are identical, but the conscious experience is different. And so if there is going to be a fact of the matter that explains a conscious experience, it can't be a physical fact, because it's possible for the physical facts to, hold true, but the conscious experience to differ.
Again, that's if there's like a soul thingy, then yes, that would make sense. So if there's a soul in one case and not a soul in the other case, you can have the same physical states with two different consciousness experiences. But again, what do you therefore, what is the conclusion of this? So yes, if we have a soul in one case and not a soul in the other, that's purely physical in one case and a soul plus physical in the other, they have two different consciousnesses. So what?
I don't understand how that's addressing anything that I said.
So two exactly identical physical brains. One has the physical plus soul goo. And the soul goo manipulates the consciousness. So you have two different conscious states. So this analogy has met your criterion of two identical physical states with two different conscious experiences. But we don't care, because in this case, what's manipulating the consciousness is this extra soul goo. And so what? It doesn't prove that consciousness isn't physical, because in the first case, in the first brain, it's purely physical. But the exact copy of the physical brain in the second case is being affected by this extra soul goo, and that's what causes it to have a different conscious experience. And so the fact that it's logically possible to have two identical physical brains that have two different consciousnesses doesn't tell us that consciousness isn't physical. It just tells us nothing.
And I think, Loads, I'll repeat myself again. All your arguments are based entirely on logical possibilities. They do not have an empirical basis. So your position to hold is not rational. Your position is not rational to hold. In historical times, people used logical possibilities to assume that germs were caused by demons. But we now know, using the scientific method, that it's caused by germs, right?
I don't think they
so logical possibilities mean
logical possibility to derive that.
Yeah, you just made a logical possibility up. People just made all kinds of shit up. Is it possible that my computer is made by aliens? Yes, because I was not there at the factory. It's possible that maybe a bunch of aliens made my computer. It's
You're living in an empirical world. You have to, at some point, make it empirical, or it's just navel gazing.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
I know you do. That's kind of the problem.
Maybe move on to a different argument.
Well, no, you guys keep interrupting. He still hasn't gotten a chance to answer mine. So it's logically possible two physical brain states have two different consciousnesses if one of the physical brain states is affected by another external factor like a soul. Okay. Why is me accepting this possibility in any way indication that consciousness is not physical?
So I agree with you. It could just simply be a brute contingent fact that that these physical states cause this sort of qualia experience, and that's fine. I don't think that, like I said, I don't go as far as Chalmers does to say that this is some sort of knockdown argument. It's just an intuition pump, and it's an intuition pump that sort of works for me. But if it doesn't for you, then
what is the
so be it.
intuition pump? What's the conclusion? So there are two physical identically brain states, and they can have two different consciousnesses if one has a soul. In fact, it's consciousness.
No, it's not. No, it's not like if one has a. I don't know why you're bringing in like if one has a soul. Just forget that. The point is that look, you can have two identical physical states with different qualia.
So this is why I keep bringing up a soul, because what you're saying is you have two identical physical states and literally nothing else. No soul, no idealism, no consciousness, no nothing else. It is only the physical states, and there is nothing else in the universe to affect them at all. And these two identically physical states, where only physical states are affecting consciousness, produce two different consciousness. That's the argument.
That So I think that they'd probably want to say that it's of like it's
what
it would be impossible for just physical stuff to produce consciousness.
So this is the argument. So this is what Chalmers is saying. If you have two identical physical systems with nothing else, no soul, no external consciousness, no nothing, it's only the physical systems governing the consciousness, and you have two different consciousnesses, then you have a problem, because if only physical states are causing the consciousness, then why would they produce two different consciousnesses? But if you say there's this soul goo, this extra stuff that's governing consciousness, then it's not a problem. Anybody can grant there's going to be two different ones in that case, because there's a different variable governing the consciousness. It's not going to be a problem.
Maybe I'd have to think about this, but I think that there's a problem here, in the sense that I think that non-physicalists would sort of say that if there's just physical stuff in the world, there can't be consciousness, because of all
consciousness already exists, so you have to start from there. You have to start with the existential.
So I agree that most of the non-physicalists think that consciousness can't exist with just physical stuff, which is the point of the argument. So suppose it did, just physical stuff. Would it be possible to have two identically physical systems that produce two different sets of consciousness? If physical stuff does produce consciousness, the answer would be no. It would not be possible. Because if physical stuff is exactly identical and physical stuff generates consciousness, then if the two physical brains would necessarily produce the same exact conscious experience. And so that is why they think consciousness can't be produced by physical stuff, because they think if it was, this would necessarily be the case. Two identically physical brains must necessarily produce the exact same conscious experience. And they don't think that is the case. And so they disagree with the fact that consciousness is produced by physical states. But a physicalist just gonna be like, yes, two identically physical brains going to produce the exact same physical state nomenologically. Now, if you change the laws of physics, they won't. Just like if you change the laws of physics, one neutron will be a positive charge and one will be a negative charge. We don't care about that. And so the argument here is that literally everything about physics is exactly the same. All of the laws of physics, all of the particles, all of the connections, everything about physics is exactly identical, and there are no external factors changing this. If that's the case, and it can produce two different consciousnesses, that's the intuition pump he's trying to get at. That maybe it won't be able to, maybe there'll be a difference somehow.
I think I can give you a very simple example, right? Like we have a consensus agreement that all the humans are conscious because we have similar physical states. But now if you extend from that example to, for example, like let's say you take a camera and you record a video of you writing the numbers 1 to 10, right? You make a copy of that video, the exact physical state, the clone of that video, exact resolution, exact frame rate, exact bit rate, all of that stuff. Now the description of your handwriting is writing it would be considered like the abstract stuff, like the imaginary stuff, if you want to call that. But in both those cases, in both the clones of the video, the action of your handwriting from 1 to 10 is still achieved. Now you can say that it's logically possible that the action of the handwriting from 1 to 10 is not true. Sure, you can do that. Does not work.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said all I and at this point, I think I'd just be repeating myself. Personally, I think Mary's room is actually probably better, but yeah.
Well, it's flawed from the very beginning, so I don't know why it would matter.
What did you say you thought about Mary's room? Something about I couldn't hear you.
Oh no,
not
Mary's
you.
room. He thinks
Lowell's. What did you say about it?
Oh, I think Mary's room is a better intuition pump, or it works more for me.
Okay, why is that?
But it's flawed.
Why do you think Mary's room? Like, what is it about the argument that you find compelling?
Yeah. Let me just sort of recap in my mind. I'm tired. So. Yeah. I mean, my intuition is that Mary doesn't have this sort of knowledge of what color looks like by looking at brain states and physical stuff in the world.
Then you have to admit you've
She doesn't
changed
know.
Mary's room. You have to admit you've now changed what Mary's room says, because the very first condition is that she knows everything about color, and so that if you can't change this and now say she doesn't have something, you have to pick one.
What?
Either Mary knows everything about color, including what it's like to experience it, or she doesn't know everything about color.
So
because
wait,
she
the
doesn't
argument
have
the
anything.
argument
Yeah,
is that
exactly.
Mary knows all the physical facts of everything happening in the room, but she doesn't have a direct experience of color itself. She doesn't see anything. She's blind. So she knows all the physical facts, but she's blind, and then they give her sight, and then she can see the color red. Has she gained any new knowledge? That's the argument.
Yeah, but it still uses the term that she knows everything,
No,
right?
she knows all the physical facts of the room, but can't see.
Yeah, so
Well,
she
wait,
knows. So she sees.
color-
Well, she sees all of the physical facts. She sees all of the brain states. She understands and can see all of the physical facts about all of the physical facts about brains when they see the color red. But then when she exits the room and sees color red for the first time, she learns what it is like to see the color red. She learns some sort of qualia experience that she didn't have before. But she knows all of the physical facts, and so the idea is that she's gained some knowledge that isn't derived from just the physical facts.
Maybe you have some other arguments about God or something.
I'm not a theist.
So Mary's room argument for me.
I'm not. You could call me a theist, yeah.
What's up? So for Mary's room argument, I think that analytic knowledge of knowing that 1 + 1 = 2, or that protons are positive charge or whatever, doesn't equate to conscious experience. So having knowledge, a justified true belief, has no connection to any sense experience at all. It's irrelevant because sense experience is arbitrary. There's no necessary connection between a fact and the sense experience it provides. And so the fact that you gain a particular set of knowledge from an experience, like going out and seeing red, is like when you see a word like blurb. If you see blurb written on a paper, and then you talk to someone who speaks the language of blurb, and they tell you that this blurb means X, you've gained new knowledge. And so knowing all the physical facts about the word blurb isn't going to tell you what it means to the culture, because what it means to the culture is subjectively contingent on the cultural usage. The same thing applies to sense experience. So sense experience is subjectively contingent on the physical way in which your brain interprets information. And so the fact that if you know all of the physical facts of the room, that it doesn't necessarily tell you anything about, won't give you the sense experience directly. When you get the sense experience, that will simply be you being able to experience the meaning of the word to your brain. So even if you know what it's going to tell you, even if you don't experience it directly, it's just learning the language. And so there's nothing special about that at all, any more than there is me telling you the meaning of the word blurb is potato.
Okay, so I kind of get it. So are you saying that that's what it's like to experience this brain state, or that's what it's like to see this physical stuff? There doesn't need to be anything over and above the physical stuff. Kind of.
Yeah. So like the knowledge of knowing all the physical facts is analytic. It doesn't give you any sense experience. And how the sense experience is interpreted is subjective to the physical states of the brain. So it's not the knowing how the brain will interpret something won't give you an experience. And so when you have the experience,
But also,
go ahead.
But also looking at the brain states won't give you that experience either.
Right, because the analytic knowledge is not doesn't actually cause the brain to fire and create brain states. So the fact that you see brain states won't create the brain states in you. If you could, that would work. So if you could see a brain state and have that brain state mirrored directly onto your brain simply by virtue of you seeing it, then it would produce the experience.
So, do you think that Mary learned something when this is the part that tripped me out? Because I think that Mary does learn something when she exits the room.
Does she learn
Yes.
something new, or does she learn about two things combined?
Yes, she learns.
As
Yes,
in-
she learns something new. So analytic knowledge, simply knowing the facts of the situation, isn't the same as having sense experience knowledge. Having a sense experience, like if I know the numbers 1 through 10 and then I draw them out, those are two different things. And so even if I know all of the numbers 1 through 10, physically drawing them out is going to give me new knowledge because it's through a new medium. But simply knowing all of the analytic facts isn't all of the knowledge there is. It's just one kind. It's the analytic knowledge. And so sense experience, a posteriori synthetic knowledge, is a different kind of knowledge.
But the point is that the what's the new thing that she learns?
Synthetic knowledge. So analytic knowledge, things you can know just by thinking about it, analytic facts, are different than synthetic facts, which are facts that you need to have an experience or reference in the external world to know. And so I can know analytically that a raccoon is a raccoon, but I can't know what a raccoon is until I actually go see it in the world. And so if I go see it in the world and say, oh, that's a raccoon, I've gained new knowledge. So even if I knew all of the facts, the a priori facts of a raccoon, I wouldn't know anything about what it physically a posteriori is until I actually discover the raccoon.
But the point is that it can't be a physical fact because she knows all the physical facts.
It can't be an a priori physical fact. It can be an a posteriori physical fact.
Look, I don't understand because she is looking at all of the physical facts about, let's say, a red fire hydrant, and she's looking at the brain states of somebody.
Wait. So let me try to
hydrant.
clarify. So if I wrote down every proposition of what a fire hydrant is, would you be able to see a fire hydrant?
Would I be able to see a fire hydrant?
Like literally. Not, I don't mean imagine one in your head.
No.
I mean, like literally, would you see a fire hydrant if I wrote every proposition?
No, of course not.
Right. So there's the synthetic facts, which are the propositions. So if I gave the Mary every single list of every single proposition, she would literally not see a fire hydrant. To see the fire hydrant, you have to go look at the fire hydrant. And so there's two different kinds of knowledge there. There's the a priori kind, the kind that I can write out in proposition format, and the a posteriori kind that you literally need to experience. And so when she experiences the fire hydrant, that piece of knowledge or experience she's gaining is not going to be on any list of the propositions I write. I can't give her that knowledge by virtue of propositions. So even if I give her all of the propositional knowledge of the fire hydrant, that isn't going to give her an experience of the fire hydrant because they're two different kinds of mediums of knowledge. One is experience, a posteriori, and one is analytic, a priori.
But can't she know? So is it impossible to know all of the a posteriori physical facts?
Yeah, it's impossible to know any a posteriori physical facts through a priori means. That's why there's a distinction between a priori and a posteriori, synthetic and analytic. So yes.
Wait, but saying that the sky is blue is an a posteriori fact, and presumably I don't need to have like some experience of looking at the sky to know that it's blue.
You would in the universe, because it's like if you imagine a different universe.
Someone can just tell me the sky is blue, and I don't need to ever see it.
No. So like if suppose we were on Alpha Centauri or something, the sky is green. It's not blue. It's only blue because of the way it operates the way our light reflects off our atmosphere. That's why it's blue. And so to say the sky is blue is contingent on the other physical facts in the universe that are arbitrary to the whether or not the sky is blue.
Fine. Okay, fine. I'll change. Look, grass is green, right?
Okay.
Let's say I've.
Well, this is the point
don't
I'm saying is
need
that fact is contingent on other facts that are derived in the physical world. It means it's
What
arbitrary.
difference
It's
does it
arbitrary.
make?
So
You're
whether or
saying
not
that
this sentence
if
is
you
true,
made the claim that I can't know any a priori facts from without having some sort of experience
a posteriori
of them. A posteriori, yeah.
Yes, because if I tell
I
you,
can
like,
change
if I tell you the sky is blue,
Wait, sorry. We're getting mixed up between synthetic, analytic, a posteriori, a priori.
yeah. So if I tell you the sky is
What
blue,
was-
do you know the sky is blue?
Do I know? Knowledge being like a justified true belief? Sure, yeah.
The answer is no.
If you're generally reliable.
Because the sky isn't blue. Like, suppose we're living on Mars, the sky's actually red.
No, it doesn't matter.
No. This literally matters.
The
This
sky
is
is blue for all
you
intents
can't
and
say it doesn't matter.
purposes.
This is literally the point of the argument. You don't know the sky is blue because I told you the sky is blue. You don't know the sky is blue if I wrote down the proposition the sky is blue. In order to know the sky is blue, you need to know the physical facts of the universe that would make the sky a particular color, because it may be the case the physical facts of the universe make the sky not blue, and so it's simply a false statement. So simply the fact that I write down the sky is blue or tell you the sky is blue doesn't tell you whether or not the sky is or isn't actually blue. To that, you would need to know other a posteriori facts. And so there's a distinction between a priori just listing the things and a posteriori verification to know that these things are true. And so simply by me writing it down, you will never know whether or not the sky is actually blue. You would need some kind of a posteriori verification to verify that. Simply writing down propositions, there is no combination of propositions I could ever write down that would ever justify you believing the sky is blue. You need to see it, or need like some kind of machine that'll read it for you or something. But me writing down propositions will never justify you in believing the sky is blue. The a priori facts, no matter what propositions I give, are never going to be sufficient to justify the claim the sky is blue. You need some kind of verification through experience.
Look, if I don't understand that at all. Look, let's just say for whatever reason I have God comes down, right, and says the sky is blue, and I've never ever seen the sky before, but I know for whatever reason that the person who's telling me the sky is blue is omniscient, right, and always truth revealing or something. Then I know that the sky is blue if he tells me the sky is blue, and I never need to look at the sky.
All you
I know
did
that
was
it's
say
blue.
that someone else who has perfect information and the ability to perfectly transfer that information gave you knowledge that you didn't ordinarily have, but you could have acquired on your own.
Yeah, well, Ozzy, I just want to counter your argument real quickly. So you said that like
Can someone let Boylai up?
you need like
One sec. Yeah. So to use your God example, say God writes the sky is blue on paper. Do you know what the sky is blue?
Sorry?
If God writes the sky is blue on a piece of paper and hands you the piece of paper, do you know the sky is blue?
Yeah.
No, because you have no idea what that even means.
What?
Like,
You
in
need to
order to
observe
have
the world,
justification
bro.
to believe the sky is blue, you need to experience it. No words,
That's
no
an
combination of
interesting-
words from God himself are going to justify it.
Yeah, because like there's other factors that come into that, Lolzy. Like people can operate on a lower like a type of a vision or frequency, right? And then they can maybe see that the sky might be green, right? Because how they view things, right? Frequency can also like the colors just based on frequency. I don't think you know that though. So if the sky is blue, it's just based on the frequency.
All right, I
on the
guess
sky.
a better way for me to phrase it is that if God writes the sky is blue on a sheet of paper and you experience and you go outside and you see the sky is blue, have you learned something extra that God didn't give you? So God gave you all of the knowledge of what a blue sky is, but he didn't give you the experience, and you go outside and you see it.
Well,
Does
no,
it gain new knowledge?
the point is that what Mary learns isn't like the propositions she sees isn't the sky is blue. What she sees is like a human, like the photon that strikes the human's eye has this like wavelength or this frequency or something. And the point is that she can't deduce from that what it's like for that to strike her. Like you're saying, there's a distinction between knowing like all the facts about what happens with your eye when the photon strikes it and the photoreceptors, and like knowing all of those physical facts doesn't tell you what it's like to actually experience it. But that's sufficient. Like that means if you agree to that, that's the conclusion of the thought experiment, right? That like that means physicalism is false. Because all
stop.
what it's
so
like.
The first part you said was correct. The second part you said was wrong. So I agree that let's skip physical. Let's say God tells you literally all facts about the sky being blue, every single fact, physical, non-physical, everything, and you go out and you see it. Did you learn something new? The answer is yes. Does that mean that the sky is blue is a non-fact of any kind that's just beyond all rationale? No, it just means there's a difference between being told facts and experiencing something.
I mean, if you think that she learns something...
Okay, you stick with my analogy. God tells you literally everything about the sky being blue. Everything, in all categories, all of them. Gives you all of the knowledge.
No.
But you haven't experienced it yet. You go out and experience it. Have you gained new knowledge? Yes. Now, the structure of the argument is set that if you are told knowledge and you gain some new knowledge, that means that what this new knowledge is must be outside of all of the knowledge you already had. So if God told you everything about the sky being blue, and you still learn something new by going out and experiencing it, that means experience is just outside of everything. It's just not in reality anymore because God told you all the facts. Either that or analytic facts are separate from experience. And so the fact that you're told analytic facts just doesn't matter. Okay, there's another kind of a thing there, which is experiential knowledge.
Yeah, so I guess my response is that it seems like not only that, like what's happening when Mary learns something is that there's a new proposition that she knows. And in the case of Mary's room, it's a proposition about what it's like to see blue. So if it's a proposition, then I guess in your hypothetical, it's going to be one of the things that God communicates to you in some way, and then you know it on the basis of, it becomes like a justified true belief or whatever.
That doesn't make any sense. So if God tells you the proposition, or like you know what it's like to see blue, because I'm assuming that's what the proposition is at this point. When she goes out and she sees blue, the proposition is
then she doesn't learn anything. I'd say she doesn't. If she already knew what it's like to see blue, then I don't think she learns anything. Know what it's like? She might have.
Does God telling her what it's like that she knows the proposition? Does that mean she does know the proposition? Like, how does that work?
Well, yeah. So my diagnosis is that I don't. If you're saying you're being told, I don't think. I don't think you can know. I don't think you can know propositions about what it's like without having the experience.
Right.
So I think the experience is necessary.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that it's not a proposition.
Well, no, I don't care if it's not a proposition. Let's say God tells you all of the proposition, all the propositional truths in the universe to everything. Will you be able to know what it's like to see blue?
Well, if we're building into the hypothetical that if God tells you something, that means you know it, then I
don't care if you know the proposition is true. I want you to know, do you have all of the information you gain from the experience simply by God telling you the propositions?
Do you have all of, well, if you have, I guess you're saying like, well, you have the information, but you might not know it?
I don't care. I don't care what
I don't know what that means.
Does you experiencing it, will God be able to tell you propositions that give you literally all 100% of knowledge of you experiencing it, so experiencing it will become redundant and gain nothing? Don't care what you call it.
I mean, okay.
You are a flatworm.
Let them think. So God tells you literally everything, all propositions.
All the propositions.
Everything.
I get that. And so if the propositions that he tells you include the propositions about what it's like, and if from him telling you know it, then no, Mary wouldn't learn anything from. She wouldn't learn any new propositions, right? Because she already knew all of these propositions.
Does she experience?
Well, I'm saying she wouldn't learn anything.
Has she had a new experience?
She does.
So
She does, but she doesn't
so
learn.
There's something new that she learns.
Goodness.
If you gain a new
there isn't.
Stop. If you gain a new experience, that's a proposition. Have you gained a new experience? That's a proposition.
I don't think experiences are propositions.
Your experience that she learned something from going outside is a proposition in exactly the same sense that her going outside and learning something or experiencing something new is a proposition. So this argument is a one-to-one comparison. Either they both fail or they both don't. If she learns something when she goes outside to experience the new room under physicalism, then necessarily she will learn something when she goes outside from talking to God. And if she doesn't, then it's the same in both. So in both cases, whether or not it's physical or whether or not it's a fact of reality, have the same implications. So if
I agree, they're parallel. Yeah. But what I don't think that experiences are propositions, because I don't think it makes any sense to say of an experience that it's true or false.
I don't care. God tells you all knowledge. He gives you all knowledge except you didn't experience it.
Yeah, then you don't learn anything.
Experience something.
Then in that case, you're not learning anything.
This applies to both. Either in the physicalist case, if you go outside and learn something new, then necessarily, if God gives you all knowledge except experience and you go outside, you have to learn something too. So,
yeah, but there is a difference in between the cases, which is that in the Mary's room thought experiment, the only propositions that she gets knowledge of are the physical ones. So when we're moving to the God hypothetical, you're saying that, well, she's not restricted to just physical propositions. She gets all the propositions. And so I just take it as part of the hypothetical, like per impossibile, that you also know all of the like qualitative or like qualia propositions. And in that case, if you know those, then you don't learn. Then Mary wouldn't learn anything from having the experience.
So the point of this argument is that when you think about it and you think about somebody like reading propositions off of a piece of paper, and then you compare that. Imagine they went outside and you think, well, would they learn something new? Like, absolutely. People understand you can't like learn the experience via the propositions. And it's intuitive to agree that having the experience is more than just looking at the set of propositions. Now, if you apply this to the God case, you should get the same intuition. If God just tells you all of the facts, standing there listening to God speak will never, under any circumstances, be equivalent to you experiencing blue. There has to be a difference there. If God,
I agree that
and that difference, for me, that difference is going to be exactly one-to-one identical to the difference between reading propositions and going outside.
So I don't think so. Because
remember, the propositions on the piece of paper that if you're reading physical,
I understand.
Are could have been written by God. Literally could have been written by God.
No. Hold on. What I'm saying is, I agree that reading the proposition on the piece of paper or hearing it, like however you get exposed to it from someone communicating the proposition to you, doesn't give you the experience. But the question isn't whether she has, whether she gets the experience from reading it. The question is whether she learns something. So having an experience and learning, having an experience. No, hold on. Having an experience and learning something are different, because if she's already seen the ball, right? Then, like, suppose she goes out and she sees the ball, right? And then she comes back in, and then she like reads all the physical facts again, and then she goes out and she sees the ball again. The second time, it's still just as true that like the second time she read the physical facts, she didn't get the sense experience of seeing the ball, but the second time she goes out, she doesn't learn anything, even though she has a new experience. She doesn't learn anything new about the color of the ball from the second time. So there's a distinction. It's possible, because the conclusion is just because the physical facts don't create a sense experience doesn't mean you learned anything from the sense experience.
That's the whole point, is the experience is learning something. No, you're confusing this proposition knowledge with the experience and the learning. So in this argument, the experience and learning are synonymous. They are the same. Having the experience is the learning. That's the point of the argument. That is the intuition pump. That is the whole point of the argument.
I agree with you on this one, but wait,
okay.
Can I reply to like what you said? So God,
this is
right?
1v2. Okay.
No, well,
it's a room, bro. Read it.
It's a room, bro. It's like everyone has the chance to speak at least, right? So I just want to like counter your argument. So basically, when God gives any information, right, you presume it has to be objective. It has to be objective facts that he's giving. He's not going to give some kind of subjective, personal thing, right? He's going to give something that's objective within the universe that proves the clouds, right? That gives proof for the blue clouds, right? He's not going to give something subjective, right? So when I go out and experience that thing, that subjective thing, I'm gonna view it differently. But if I experienced it already, and then after that, he gives me the information, I'm just gonna view it a little differently. I'm gonna view it differently, but it doesn't change my subjective experience.
And a quick point that I would like to reply to you based on the examples that you talked about, the ball, the person seeing the ball and then not seeing the ball. The whole process of learning itself is a part of the conscious experience. Like a consciousness has multiple qualities like intelligence, problem solving, reasoning, learning, understanding. All of these are qualities of consciousness. So when you see the ball first, your conscious experience is learning that there is a ball. And the next time when you go and you don't see a ball, your conscious experience is learning that there is no ball. It's literally learning.
Sure. Yeah. Well, right. So there's three different arguments.
It's called reinforcement learning.
Yeah, I'm familiar with reinforcement learning. Well, you'd need like a positive or negative feedback for it to be reinforcement.
Usually, I don't really like agree with like sometimes with what Team Drum says, but like this, I have to agree. Like the thing is like these objective things, right? These like God is not gonna give any subjective things, right? He's gonna just he's all knowing, right? He wants to tell the truth.
I heard you make that argument earlier.
He's gonna give objective truths. He's not gonna give any subjective truths.
You're repeating the argument. I heard it.
Yeah,
I don't think that's. I think that's contrary to the hypothetical, because T-Jump
That's
specified.
not hypothetical.
Hold on.
Does God?
It's going to be really hard to counter 3 different arguments if I can't say a sentence.
Wait. Does God lie? I just want to know.
Not in the hypothetical, I assume.
Okay, sure.
I think your God lies to you a lot. So because you make a lot of.
Ix, did you want to say something? Ix usually has pretty good arguments.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Do we have a text chat where I can post links? Because we haven't mentioned the fact that this argument was retracted by its original author. Frank Jackson wrote the argument, and he took it seriously, and he admitted that his response to it, or his abandonment of it, wasn't easy, and it's not like he thinks it was a mistake to pose it, but he thinks that if you concede that the representational theory of sense experience, or what its likeness, works, then the whole thing evaporates.
How so? Could you explain how it evaporates?
Yeah. So the whole idea of the what it's like type argument, both Nagel and Jackson's argument infer or refer to some property of what it's like.
Qualia.
The idea that is something like a noun that can be referred to propositionally separate from other things that's special is denied by representationalism about sense experience. So it's like
no qualia.
No, just that the qualia aren't propositional, or there aren't propositions.
They're not propositional. Yeah. So like
that's why I wanted to talk about propositions and experience and the distinctions between them, which is what representation theory is getting at.
Yeah, a lot of people don't take sense experience to be propositional. In one sense, it's like how do you say it? It's involuntary. Like you just have sensory experience.
It's an intuition.
And the second piece that Frank Jackson agreed with, because of representationalism, called the ability hypothesis. In other words, when we use propositions about knowledge, we're talking about, I know X, meaning there's some fact that I am aware of that is true. But if the so-called fact is something like raw sense data, and the ability to apprehend that sense data in the first place wasn't even an action that you undertook, it was just a sort of a process, then the ability to undertake that process is what you either have or don't have. But the sense data itself is not propositional. It'd be like saying there'd be like an infinite number of propositions about every frame of a video, such that you could infinitely divide them into smaller and smaller frames of video and say, oh, that's a different proposition than all the others. It's more rational, I think, to see perception as an ability that we have, and the kind of thing that we get through perception is representations of facts. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, there's a fact. There's a fact that the sky is blue, and when you perceive it, you apprehend that fact. And the sense data is the ability to apprehend that fact. But the sense data itself isn't a noun in the traditional way we think of them as being things that you have or don't have.
Yeah. So I mean, my diagnosis is that you get the sense data, which is non-propositional, and then that goes on to justify that stands in like counts in favor of relations to propositions about the sense data or about the external world, and that it's the propositions that form Mary's knowledge, because like knowledge is justified true belief. Beliefs are attitudes about propositions. So to me, the experience is like doing the justification work. But like you only learn something new if the propositional content is different from something. So
yeah,
to
do we have a
me,
text chat?
I have no idea.
Yeah, there's an Atheist Helpline text chat above the stage event thing, I think.
Okay, I'm going to post it in there while you continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, so the only way she could learn, the only way she could know something new is if she knew a proposition that she didn't know before. And so either she had the proposition, but it wasn't justified enough, or she didn't have she didn't have like an attitude at all about it. Like she didn't have a belief, or she had a belief and the belief was unjustified. That's the only way she could learn something new. But since like propositional content is different from experience, the fact that she experienced something new doesn't tell us whether any new propositions entered into her like noetic structure, or whether the proposition that was already in her noetic structure got like amplified enough by this new justification to like count as knowledge, and so for that to be the learning. That's my diagnosis.
Well, I think you're taking a very proprietary understanding of how people interpret the intuition of the argument, because the way most people interpret the intuition of the argument is as the way Ix and I were describing, that experience is not propositional, and so the knowledge or the thing she's learning is the experiential knowledge. The experience itself is the knowledge, and whether or not that ties into some justification for a proposition is just irrelevant to what people mean by this argument. It's your own thing that you've added in, and so when people apply this argument to gain the intuition that conscience isn't physical because she learned something new, you can apply the same kinds of rationale to the God question, where God gives you all propositions and ask people, well, now if you go outside, would you still gain knowledge? Most people will agree that same intuition applies in both. Now you have this proprietary understanding of knowledge and related to propositions and things, which I don't think most people would agree with, but that wouldn't relate to the criticism of the argument that I'm laying, which is the same as
you think my theory of knowledge that it's justified true belief
your
or it's the experience proposition relation?
No, your interpretation that Mary hasn't gained any new knowledge by going outside and experiencing the room is proprietary to you.
Well, no, I think she does learn something new in the Mary's room thought
experiment. In the God example.
But
in the God example.
In the God example, I just take it that per impossibile, she actually did get knowledge of this, what it's like, this proposition about what it's like. And so
this is your proprietary thing that essentially no one's going to agree with. That if God can somehow,
that if God tells you something, you know it.
That if God can,
that doesn't seem proprietary.
That if God tells you all of the propositional facts, you will then know the experience, or you will have the same. You will not gain the new knowledge that you gained from going outside in the physical case. So everybody else's intuition is going to be like, when you go outside, you gain new knowledge. And when you go outside in the God case, you're going to gain the exact same new knowledge with no difference in both the physical case.
Well, so
So in the physical case and in the God case, you gain the exact same knowledge, whether you were given all of the facts of the physical world or whether you're given all the facts of all possible worlds.
So if she gains new knowledge, then do you agree that she either has a new belief, or one of the beliefs she already had increased in justification?
No.
Do you agree that those are the only two?
I'm saying experiential knowledge is another kind of knowledge, where literally having the experience is a kind of knowledge.
Okay. No, I can accept that distinction. So there's like knowing dash proposition and there's like knowing dash experiential. And I can agree that, okay, she knowing dash experiential learns something, but doesn't knowing dash propositional learn something. But I think it's sufficient for physicalism to be false that the knowing dash propositional, she doesn't learn anything in the knowing dash propositional sense, because that means that there's propositions about what it's like that she didn't learn from learning all the physical facts or learning all the physical or the propositions about the physical facts. I think that's sufficient for the Mary's room to defeat physicalism.
How?
Because physicalism entails that all of the propositions about the qualia experience are just propositions about physical facts about your brain and vision and that kind of stuff.
I know that it's a physical fact that when people who are colorblind see blue, they see a gray. Now, I know this fact, but I don't see it. I have never experienced what that's like.
Yeah, but we're not talking about knowing dash experiential. We're talking about knowing dash proposition.
So I know the proposition that when someone who's colorblind sees it, they see gray, right? But if I experience it, that's still going to be the new kind of thing, right?
The different kind of knowledge, yeah. So I agree that knowing dash proposition doesn't
the
entail.
colorblindness is clearly a physical thing, right? I could say that a computer, get rid of the person, say a computer with a camera on it sees it as gray because it doesn't have any blue in it or whatever. It doesn't have the blue cones. And that's purely physical. This is a purely physical fact. We know for a fact the camera sees not blue, but I've never experienced it. I know all of the physical facts of this camera and how it sees things. I know that what it sees is gray, but I've never seen it, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. What I think is happening is that, I mean, so I agree that knowing propositions doesn't give you experiential knowledge. So knowing dash proposition of P doesn't tell you or doesn't give you knowledge of the experience of P.
So does that mean
so
that
unless you think that
in
qualia
the computer is non-physical? So there's a camera, look at the computer, camera is black and white. I know all the physical facts of the camera, but I've never experienced it. Does that mean that the camera is non-physical?
Wait, does that mean the camera's non-physical?
Anything
Why would that mean
camera.
the camera's
Yeah,
non-physical?
because the camera is seen in black and white, and I can know all of the facts of the camera, but I have no idea what it looks like because I've never seen it.
Wait, that doesn't. The thesis isn't that the camera is non-physical. It's that the propositions about what it's like to see the objects aren't equivalent or equal to. They're not the same propositions as propositions about the physical facts.
Right. So imagine there's a camera, which you know is 100% physical, and its screen has like a screen, and the screen is facing the other way, and the screen is 100% physical. And I've never experienced the screen. I have no idea. Like, you can tell me all the facts of what it looks like, but actually looking at the screen is going to be something different, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but does that show anything in the camera is non-physical?
Is it? Well, no. The camera doesn't know anything.
Good. And so how exactly does the fact that there is some extra thing there, the extra thing that we haven't experienced yet, in any way tell us in the physical Mary's room example that physicalism is defeated?
It doesn't. No, but that's not the component, right? So like the fact that there's this other category of knowledge, or like putatively, I'll accept for the sake of argument, that there's this experiential knowledge that's different from propositional knowledge, that's fine. Like, I accept that, you know, being told anything doesn't give you the experiential knowledge, right? Like, having propositional knowledge doesn't give you experiential knowledge. I agree with that implication. What the Mary's room thought experiment only needs to establish that having propositional knowledge of all the physical facts doesn't give you any propositional knowledge about the qualia facts.
Right.
So there's propositions about the qualia facts that are not even in principle deducible from propositions about the physical facts, which means that physicalism is false because it is an entailment of physicalism.
So let's go with my analogy. Try to follow a little bit. So there's a computer, camera sees a computer, colorblind. I've never seen anything colorblind. I have no idea what it's looking like. There's nothing about that implies there's a non-physical part of the camera, right? Now suppose I am a camera.
Right.
I am not. There's no I am a camera, but I am not a colorblind camera, or maybe it has like a whatever it can see infrared. And I've never seen infrared or something. And you give me all of the propositions to see what it's like to be.
You have no consciousness.
Right. I have no consciousness.
You have no intellect. How can you know
things? I'm just a computer. I'm just a computer with a set of facts.
Well, how do you give it the facts?
My camera
what does that
lens
mean?
and my camera, you can put facts in a computer just fine. No problem there. My camera,
but it doesn't.
My camera lens cannot perceive infrared, right? So, is there any way for you to give facts to my camera lens to generate the infrared image? Any propositions that you just put in front of the camera that's going to generate an infrared image on this camera?
I mean, if you, I don't know, like a software update. I don't know enough to say like whether you could do some kind of an injection attack.
Writing on a piece of paper. You get to write on a piece of paper things, and you get to put them in front of the camera. Is there anything you can anything you can write on?
Yeah, but you could do an injection attack. I don't know enough about vision and whether you can deduce the infrared things from
computer. You get to hold pieces of paper up to a camera. That's it. All you get to do is write on a piece of paper and hold it up to a camera. Is there anything you can write on the sheet of paper and hold up to the camera to make it see infrared?
Okay, so you're saying there's no ability to affect it in addition to you get to put things in front of it that it's going to read. Yeah. You got to give it input. Yeah. Sure. Seems like you couldn't.
Right.
You couldn't make it. You couldn't change its inputs.
Right. So suppose we have Mary's room example, but with this camera and we're showing and there's infrared. There's an infrared lens on the other side of the door. So when it goes out, it gets to see through an infrared lens. There are no propositions you could tell it to get it to see the infrared, right? You can't do it. There's nothing you can.
Well, but T-Jump, I already agreed that propositional knowledge doesn't
does that imply anything about the camera is non-physical?
I don't understand how that relates to the Mary's Room thought experiment because
we have a 100% physical camera.
The point isn't
if you answer the question, you might.
Well, no, but the point of Mary's Room isn't. The point of the Mary's Room thought experiment isn't that there's something non-physical about Mary. It's that it's about like propositions.
The point is that the whole point is that there has to be something beyond.
No, but it's consistent. It's consistent with property dualism. You don't need substance dualism.
I don't care which version. It makes no difference to the argument. Is there something that's property dualistic about the camera?
Well, no, because what's supposed to be property dualistic is states of belief or states of knowledge, which the camera doesn't have by your hypothetical.
But
so can I ask you a question? Have you read Frank Jackson's retraction for this? Or have you
no,
watched
I heard.
Okay, let me give you 2 links in the chat.
I haven't watched the interview. I heard Michael Humer discuss it with someone.
So, someone that we both know, Detroyer, and his YouTube channel Friction, who's interviewed quite a few eminent philosophers, and does a very good job of breaking down and steel manning all the positions vis-a-vis the arguments, has interviewed Frank Jackson. And I posted Detroyer's interview, which is just a year old, where Frank Jackson explains all the entailments vis-a-vis physicalism and what it means, and representationalism and the ability theory and everything like that.
Okay.
There's no shame in being just as sort of confounded by the argument as he was when he first posed it. It's very troubling. But I think anyone who doesn't read the retraction of a paper by its author is just not doing the thing you would expect in like the physical sciences. If someone, or social scientists, if like recently there was a social scientist who was found to have like p-hacked the shit out of like 4 or 5 different papers she was involved with, and she's a Harvard professor, and it's basically the end of her career, and the university retracted the papers for her. Frank Jackson has at least gone to the decency of retracting his own paper rather than having other people do it for him. But most people have never read or understood his retraction. So I would urge you to do that.
Sure, that's fine.
I'm not saying I can render it.
I'm not yeah, okay.
I'm not saying I can render it in as good a detail as he can, because I haven't watched this interview for a year, and I'm not as familiar with representationalism as he is. But I would urge everybody who thinks the Mary's Room thing is a big deal to watch the author's retraction interviews and explanations.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think what's controversial about what I'm saying is that I think the argument is successful. It's about diagnosing like what would be sufficient for physicalism to be false, right? And to me, it's about propositional knowledge, that like Mary couldn't have propositional knowledge of the facts about qualia
So
or
I'll
of the
read.
qualia itself.
I'll read his response to that, right? So, in his own words, those who resist accounts in terms of ability acquisition and the ability hypothesis tend to say things like Mary acquires a new piece of propositional knowledge, namely that seeing red is like this. The seeing red is like this part is supposed to be a valid proposition, right? But according to representationalism, there is no referent. The like this part is just a cognitive illusion that our intuitions tell us should be a real thing, but really doesn't amount to anything that can be pointed to propositionally.
I don't think that's sufficient to show that it's not a proposition.
You
I
can
guess.
argue with the guy, really?
I mean,
Yeah,
not everybody
are we
accepts his-
not supposed to give arguments? Like, am I in school?
No,
What's
what you
happening
should
here?
do is read the ones that you're making because they've been made before. Don't pretend they're
Yeah.
original.
I'm not. When did I pretend that anything I'm saying
Just
is
now.
original? What the
Just
fuck?
now.
I don't
Wait,
think that's fair,
what?
Walker. I don't think he's claiming
What the
originality.
fuck? That's ridiculous. No, what I'm trying to explain is like, hey, what he just said seems odd to me. If I explain my confusion, maybe you could clarify it.
Let's try a different way.
Is that a bad attitude?
No,
Like, what the
perfectly fine,
fuck am I being
perfectly fine.
criticized
So,
for?
If I give you a word blurb and you have no idea what it means until you see the language, but you have all physical facts about the word blurb, does that mean there's some non-physical fact about the word blurb?
If I know all of the physical facts about the word, do I know the meaning of the word, or is there something about the non-physical thing about the word?
Yeah, because you won't know the meaning. It's arbitrary. I literally get to make up what it means.
Well, I mean, that depends on your theory of meaning. Like, if your theory of meaning is about, like, you'll know, like, what is it in
I just
machine
made
learning?
up this word, so I have the definition in my head. I haven't told you yet. So I give you the word, and I give you all of the physical facts about the word. Are you going to be able to derive the meaning of the word? That I literally just
Yeah, and what
made
I'm
up.
trying to give you is a theory of meaning on which the answer would be yes.
Okay.
So the theory of meaning.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the theory of meaning here, and it's sort of how like word2vec and other forms of natural language machine learning models kind of represent the meaning of give like a vector assignment to words that kind of roughly correspond to their meaning, is that you know the meaning of the word by the company it keeps. And so if you know like the sort of difference relations when words are used together, what words they're used with, like sliding context window, that sort of thing, then yeah, you could know the meaning of it by knowing all those facts in the same way that you might say,
Well, none of those are
you
physical
know,
facts, though. So what are you talking about?
wait, how the words are used together aren't physical facts?
Yeah, it's an abstract language, so you don't.
I mean, those are facts about how English
Those aren't physical
works,
facts. Those are
right?
abstract. Abstract facts are not physical facts.
I posted.
No, but they're physical facts about what. They're physical facts about how, like, the sounds that people make when they're speaking
the only
to each
person
other.
who's made a sound about this is me about 5 seconds ago when I said the word blurb. That's it. So I literally just made it
Yeah,
up.
but you said I get. Oh, well, then I'd say there isn't a meaning to the word.
Yeah, there is, because I have a meaning.
There's
I have
nothing
a
there
definition.
to know.
I have a definition. So it has a meaning. I mean something by it.
Yeah, okay. Then in that case, I wouldn't know the meaning, but not because the meaning is non-physical.
Right. So the fact that even if you know all the physical propositions about something doesn't mean you're going to know everything about it, because some of the factors are going to be arbitrary. They're not determined by the physical state alone, right? Because there's going to be lots of, if everybody came up with the word blurb, there's could be lots of different meanings of what they mean by it based on their social context, based on how it's used in society. There are lots of factors that can determine its meaning other than simply the physical facts about the word, right? The physical shape of the word is irrelevant. The sound is irrelevant.
Well, I take physical facts about the word to include, like, its pronunciation.
Pronunciation is the same in all cases.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Okay.
You know its pronunciation. You know, like, the pattern of its usage.
Same in all
you know,
cases.
like, frequency.
Again, the meaning.
Goodness gracious!
So this is basic linguistics, natural ambiguity of
If
language.
the words,
right?
if the words are, if all of the words are used in all exactly the same ways all the time, then I'd say they have the same meaning. This is
No,
like
they don't.
quaddition
No,
and addition,
Gava
right?
guy. So it's the opposite of that. They can be used in the same context and have different meanings. Private language. So the fact that they're used in the same way, almost identically, they can all have completely different meanings. So you can never know the meaning simply by knowing the physical facts about it. Not a thing. Can't do it. Natural ambiguity of language. The Gava guy argument from what's his name. But does that mean that the language is non-physical? No, it just means that there's no determining factor between the physical states to the meaning of the words. It's arbitrary. It can be randomized to mean a lot of different things. And so you can never know the meaning simply by looking at the physical facts, not because it's non-physical, but because the physical facts don't determine the meaning. If there's some variability to the meaning, then you could never know the meaning simply by looking at the physical facts, because it only gives you some probability of the outcomes, right?
Okay, so if knowing all the physical facts is insufficient to know the meaning, but we do know the meaning, then we know it in virtue of something that isn't a physical fact, right?
No. So I can still know it by virtue of a physical fact because I made up the meaning. So if I made up the meaning and it's in my brain, I can say here's the meaning, but whatever. But that's different to the point.
But
Wait. So the example here, something can be 100% physical, but random, non-deterministic. And that means even though you can know all the physical facts and not know the outcome, that does not imply it's non-physical, right? It's like quantum physics. You have a randomized outcome. Is it non-physical?
You can't know. Yeah, I mean, if it's non-deterministic, well, whether you know it depends on like how degenerate the probability distribution is.
Irrelevant to the argument. So the argument here is there is some random distribution, random probability, and so you can't.
What I'm saying is, it could be. I'm saying you could know it even if it's non-deterministic.
That's irrelevant. I'm using only the examples you can't know. I don't care. So in this example, there is something you cannot know. The probability is just too random. You can't know it, but it's 100% physical. Based on the structure of your argument, you would imply that the fact that you can't know something, even if you know all of the physical facts, implies it's non-physical. This is false. One example to prove this is false is you can have an entirely physical system that is non-deterministic, which prevents you from knowing something, but we know it's purely a physical system. So there are physical systems where you can know all the facts and not know the implications of those facts. And so the fact that you're bringing forth, that is the crux of your argument, is that there is some non-known fact, even though you know all the physical stuffs, and then you have this, therefore, there must be more than physical stuff. That is false.
So the structure of the argument, I think, is slightly different from what you just said. If the antecedent is that you do know something. So suppose we have this non-deterministic system, but we do know the outcome, but all the physical facts aren't sufficient to have that knowledge, right?
No.
That's the Good.
If your system by nature is non-deterministic, then the outcome cannot be determined. It's impossible. So,
but then it's not parallel to the Mary's.
So what you?
Then it's not parallel because in the Mary's room thought experiment, all of the anti-physicalism stuff follows from the fact that she does know something new. So it's not the absence of knowledge that you draw the inference from; it's the presence of knowledge.
So I'm not.
So if you did know the outcome,
I'm trying to draw. So
well, let's use your example.
So let's say Mary's room, and we have a uranium particle that's going to decay. She knows all of the factors of the physical universe,
but doesn't know the outcome of the decay.
She doesn't know the outcome of decay. Then she opens the box and she says, "Oh, look, it decayed." She learned something new. So all of the physical facts of the uranium, she knows them, but she can't know when it's going to decay until she opens the box and actually looks. Oh, look, it decayed. And so she learns something.
Well,
new.
In that case, she didn't know all the physical facts, right? Because one of the physical facts.
The output is non-deterministic. It's impossible to know by the nature of the system.
Can I give my response?
Yes.
Is that okay?
She knows all of the physical facts, every single physical fact.
I'm saying that there's a contradiction in saying she knows all the.
It has not decayed. She knows all of the physical facts. Has not decayed. The only time she can know when it decays is when it decays. She has to experience the decay.
Yeah. So here's my response. Physical facts about it include physical facts of future states.
Not in this example.
If she knows the physical facts about future states, like all the physical facts include all the facts about space-time and all of its states and all the state transitions through space-time. Those are all physical facts about it. So if she knows all of those, then she doesn't learn anything new because she would have already known that it collapsed because she knew that fact about how its state evolves through space-time.
No, if the fundamental essence is probabilistic in nature, then you still can't know. It's impossible.
Well, then, but it's not impossible because
it is impossible. If the fundamental nature is probabilistic, then how can it be possible for you to know that fact?
Because if there is a fact about what state it's going to be at a future time,
it is not.
I almost got to say sentence.
You just can't know. It's not possible.
Yeah. So when you attach in the hypothetical that when she looks, it has collapsed into a state, and so she knows whether it decayed or didn't. That is a physical fact about the particle, whether it decayed or not. And whether it decayed at a certain time is a physical fact about it. It's a fact about how its state evolves, like in this, like what its state is going to be.
So if she knows the future, then she knows something.
Wait, can I know something quickly?
Yeah, one sec.
Go ahead.
One sec. Let's
try to be more concise next time.
Well, so I wanna let's ask this way. If suppose we know all physical facts throughout all time in a universe, just everything, all time. But we don't, is it possible that we don't know everything about the universe? If it's purely physical universe, we know all the physical facts. Will we know everything about the universe, or will there be some things which we don't know?
Are we assuming physicalism?
Because everything's what physical. There's literally nothing but physical stuff. I'm a materialist. It's all physical. So it's just physical universe. We know all the physical facts. Is there something we don't know?
We know all the physical facts. Is there something we don't know? Okay, so to answer this, I think this reduces to, are there propositions about the facts that aren't even in principle knowable by having those facts present in your mind?
No, I'm going for more something like Gödel's incompleteness theorem here, where even if you know all the facts in the system, there's still going to be facts that you don't know about the system. You can never know all of the facts about the system. And so even if there's a 100% purely physical universe and we know all the physical facts, there are going to be some things about it we can't know. And so simply the fact that we can't know something, no matter what, does not imply it's non-physical.
Yeah, so I guess that seems like a straightforward contradiction to say that you know all the physical facts, but then there's physical facts you don't know. Because if I assume that I know all the physical facts, then there aren't any that I don't know, right? Because just at the start of the hypothetical, all those got injected into my brain, so I know all the physical facts.
No, again, so like there can be analytic facts or relationship facts about the system that you can't know, even though the physical facts.
So you're saying I know the physical facts, but there's other facts that are non-physical that I couldn't even in principle derive from the physical facts, and I have to know them some other way.
There's nothing but physical, but facts, which
if all the facts are physical and I know all the physical,
there are propositions, and propositions aren't physical. They're things we write down, and so the propositions can entail things which are not. There are going to be true propositions which have nothing, that are not determined by the physical states, but they will be true or false. We just can't determine. There are undetermined propositions. So we know all of the physical facts that we can, and there are some propositions which are non-physical, but they're just propositions. They're abstract. We don't care, but we don't know them.
Sure.
We don't know them.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you some questions about this hypothetical, if you don't mind. Okay. In the hypothetical, are all facts physical facts?
Not all propositions, no.
No, but the facts.
Sure.
Okay, all the facts are physical facts. Okay, in the hypothetical, is every true proposition true in virtue of a fact?
No. Maybe. No.
So a proposition could be true without being true in virtue of a fact obtaining.
Possibly.
Okay. Well, so I think that's gonna be the hinge.
It's irrelevant. It's gonna be irrelevant to the argument, though. So there again, the only thing
I think it's relevant in the following sense.
There's some randomness, brute fact nature of the universe. There's some brute fact or something out there, and this brute fact entails randomness. There's some random variable.
I think I have a syllogism here.
Sure.
So if all facts are physical facts, and true propositions are true in virtue of a fact, then all true propositions are true in virtue of a physical fact. And if a proposition is true in virtue of a physical fact, then it is derivable from that physical fact?
No, that's
Maybe
false.
that's the controversial premise.
So like again, say one of the physical facts is there is a randomness variable that randomizes stuff. And so it is true that this randomness variable is going to randomly get some answer to something. but we will never know what that is because it's a randomness variable. Like we know it's random, and we know what the answer is going to be random because it's a randomness variable.
But we don't
know what the answer is going to be ever.
Is the outcome of the random variable a physical fact?
It doesn't. There is no outcome. It's outside of space and time. Hasn't happened. All space and time is past. This is outside of space and time. We don't know.
If it's a random process, are there facts about the random process?
I don't know what that means. That would mean it's not random.
So like so to me,
sure,
if
give
I
us a
say I'm going
probability,
to
sure, why not?
Yeah, so that would be like a fact about it. The fact is this process has this the outcomes of this process have this probability distribution. Sure. So that would be a fact, but we already said every fact in the system is a physical fact. So that's got to be a physical fact.
Sure.
But that seems kind of
Of
contradictory.
the randomness randomness field.
Yeah, but this thing you said was outside space and you said it's non-physical.
There are physical things outside of space.
How could there be a physical fact?
This is basic facts of physics. Space and time is emergent from other physical things. So that's not even controversial. So there are things outside of space and time which are physical, which are just fine, and they are quantum fields. And
so why is the outcome of this? Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair. So the outcome of this, the outcome is like an event.
I don't know how to describe that. It's outside of space time. I don't really care.
But it's still physical.
Yeah, it's physical. It's all physical. Nothing. There's no non-physical anything.
So that the outcome is physical. So isn't it a fact?
Nope.
So like whatever the outcome
actually.
Okay, so you think if it hasn't happened yet, then there's not a fact of the matter.
And it's outside of space time, so it's whether or not.
No. On that it follows. On that it follows.
So there's something we don't know, but it's all purely physical, and we can't know it. We know all the physical facts. Can't know.
If you think there's not facts of the matter about like the outcome, then that's sufficient for your conclusion to go through. Yeah, I agree with that.
Sure. So there are facts, even if we know all.
I just think there are facts of the matter about the.
Well, the point is the exact.
I think there's facts of the matter about the future. So I think I have
This is
wider
a one-to-one.
This
is a one-to-one correlation to Mary's room. So until you leave the room.
No, I agree. I agree that it's a one-to-one correlation. What I'm saying is, when I think of the facts that she knows, you have like a narrower set than I have. Because I'm including facts about the future.
Well, the point here is simply the fact that you can have a purely physical system and know all of the facts of the purely physical system and not know everything. There are things you're not going to know. Whether or not you can learn them in other means.
That's trivial. That's trivial if we're excluding facts about the future.
I agree it's trivial. That's why Mary's room is trivial. It's irrelevant.
No, but what I disagree with is your statement that there aren't facts about future states. I think there are facts about future states.
That's part of the analogy. That's irrelevant. I mean, I agree there are facts about future states, but that's irrelevant to the point of the analogy.
Well, if there's facts about future states,
again, this is irrelevant to the point of the analogy. You're just nitpicking the analogy pointlessly, and I've proven your argument wrong. You can have a purely physical system and have facts you don't know. You can learn them in a different means. I don't care. There's nothing,
if you know
the fact that there is a purely physical system and you can know all of the physical facts, but still not know something and learn it later by some other means, does not imply an extra physical, non-physical something. Does not do that. Literally doesn't do that. It's a what's it called? Affirming the consequent fallacy. The grass is wet, therefore it rained. Like, nope, there's another possibility there.
Sure.
And
so I guess
there is like a probabilistic distribution of potential facts, but you won't know what that fact is until the fact occurs.
Yeah, so I guess my intuition is that the outcome of these like random processes, that there's a fact of the matter about what the outcome will be, even if the process is non-deterministic.
That's like Mary leaving the room. So again, that's irrelevant to the analogy. The point of the analogy is that,
and if that's the case, if it's the case that you know the outcome of this non-deterministic process, then whether it's deterministic or not, it's relevant because you still know the outcome. So what the gap
No, you only know the probabilistic distribution.
Abe, he's talking about in the future after it's already collapsed. Then you know when it collapsed.
No, I'm talking about at the beginning of the hypothetical when we say that you know all of the physical facts. What I'm saying is, if there's a fact of the matter about what the outcome of the random process will be, then before, like at the beginning, at t equals 0, yes, you know what the outcome will be.
We know the future.
Okay.
Yes, but that's irrelevant to the
so
analogy.
the question is whether knowing the future
outside of that's a straw man of the analogy. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
The point is,
so then
you can
how does it follow
all physical facts and still not know something in a physical universe and learn it later?
Yeah, so that's what I don't.
It doesn't make a difference. So your argument is wrong because it doesn't imply the fact that there are things you can't know. You can't know everything just by knowing all the physical facts. So God is incomplete in the system. You can't know everything in any system by knowing all the facts in the system. You can't do it.
Well, in Gödel's incompleteness theorem, it's all right. I don't want to nitpick that.
Can we get back to? Can we just get back to the refutation that Frank Jackson published for his own argument? Because I can read it to you in full now if you want.
Yeah, because we went in
You want to read it in full? Sure.
Okay. So this is an interview version of it. It's not the academic article version. If you want to read the footnoted, super long article versions, you're being my guest. The Destroyer interview is the best though because it's only a year old. So all the latest thinking he's done on it, all the responses to it are all factored.
Step away from
the Detroit interview. But anyway, this is from 2011 when he first basically retracted it and did the rounds of people trying to figure out why he retracted it. Okay, so he says, and I'm skipping the beginning of the interview just to the part that's relevant. He says, for a while I was at the stage of people who say there must be something wrong with the knowledge argument. It's not obvious, despite the fact that some people jump up and down and say it's obvious. Because look at all these smart people giving different diagnoses of what's wrong. That tells you it's not obvious what's wrong with it. I was in that situation thinking there's got to be something wrong with it. Okay, so he says, then I decided that the best way out is to think in representationalist terms about phenomenal experience. When you think in those terms, what you're thinking is that when something looks red to you, don't think of that as a relationship between you and an instance of some special property. Think of it as representing things as being a certain way. You don't think of it in relational terms. You think in propositional terms as a kind of intentional state. And when you think in those terms, you make a mistake to wonder where the special redness is that you think that you're in relation to. What you have to ask yourself is, when something looks red, how am I representing the world to be? And if you're convinced that you're representing the world such that it has some special property outside the physical picture of the world, and you think physicalism is plausible, then of course you think it's a case of false representation. And you better have some story about how looking red represents things to be, and what that is, and what that to be is, and how it can be found in a physical picture of what the world's like. Are you with me so far?
So it sounds like the idea is redness isn't like when you experience redness, you're not like there's not some like property of redness about your experience that you are getting propositional awareness of. Instead, there's like you're learning a representation of what the world is like.
Yeah. Okay, so that
but isn't that, I don't understand how that's not propositional.
I think it's more like you've made up a language like English and you're just learning how your brain made up the definition, but there's no fact of the matter in reality that determines this. It's just kind of arbitrary. Your brain made up this definition.
Aren't you learning? Isn't there like, aren't you learning
about, well, let me put it this way. Okay, if you experience an optical illusion, right? Like you think that the lines are curved, but they're designed to trick your brain into thinking they're curved. They're actually straight, right? Is it the fact of the matter that the lines are curved because you perceive them to be so, because you represent them as curved in your head?
Obviously not.
So you obviously don't know that the lines are curved. You just represent them as curved, right?
Yeah, but there.
So you have a false representation.
Okay. Yeah, I get the idea of a false representation. My puzzle is, it seems like when you have this representation, there's like you're learning a proposition about how you're representing the world. Like there's some proposition.
That's a second order proposition. That's not the actual sense experience itself.
No, I agree that the sense experience is non-propositional.
We can tell stories about people's sense experiences from a third person point of view, but the claim that Mary, by herself, without you coming in like telling a story about Mary, has learned something new when she's actually just represented things as they are a certain way is a mistake. So let me continue if you don't mind. Okay, so he says, this actually helps break the spell a little. Maybe it's a mistake to think of Mary as bumping into a new thing called redness, like turning the corner and seeing a new kind of dog. Instead, she's acquired a representation of how things are. But how do representations work on this view? What is it to see red if it's not to be in a relation to something red? When I'm talking about representation, I'm talking about a state where you're invited to have a certain view about how things are. Of course, you may reject it. When you have those famous perceptual illusions, like thinking that the line is curved when it's actually straight, nevertheless, you're in a state which sort of says to you, this is the way things really are. It really must be curved. That's what I mean by representation. So when something looks red, you're in a state which almost shouts at you, this really is red. This has the surface property called red. This experience of something looking red doesn't say something about you, it says something about the object. Dispositional theories are theories that say, in one way or another, that we should think of color as a relation between you and the object, not a fact about you, such as knowledge or propositions. But I think that when something looks red, you're representing the way it is, not the way that you are. Looking red, I think, is clearly a representational state. I think the idea that perceptual states in general are representational states is extremely plausible. If you think that and you're a physicalist, what you have to say is, Mary clearly enters a new representational state when she leaves the room. That should be common ground that we can all agree on. If you're a physicalist, then you've got two things to say at that point. You're either going to say that she doesn't get new knowledge. Well, she already had it. She already knew what the thing being represented was before she left the room. Everything propositional is already present prior to her acquiring the representation of the proposition she was already aware of. If she already had it, then you have to answer the question, what property do her newer experiences represent things as having, which she knew about in the room? So maybe she didn't know about it under the name red. But if she's in a new representational state and things are as they're being represented to be, and she doesn't learn anything new about the world from this so-called new representation, then you have to give an answer to what looking red represents things as being that is actually a new thing. What proposition has she acquired that she couldn't already make? If all she has is an experience of having a representation of something she already knew about, it's a false representation if she believes it's wrong. Color is an illusion. You have to just say one or the other.
Yeah, so it sounds like on his like rejection of or his endorsement of physicalism over and against the thought experiment, he thinks that she already had all the propositions before she left the room. Right?
The thing that she's representing, like let's give an example. Let's say you have two. This goes into the representationalist view in more detail. If you want to read the full article on representationalism to fully understand it, which is listed above, I have a quote from that as well. But they give an example. Like you could have the representation that water is wet. That's different than the representation that H2O is wet. Because in one case, you know something about the thing that you didn't otherwise, right? They're two different representations. But we would say the water is wet representation is a false representation. In other words, water doesn't have any like really clear referent the same way that H2O does. H2O definitely refers to something real, whereas water is just like a category. You could think that two different things are water just because they both look wet or feel wet, and you could just be mistaken. But you couldn't be mistaken about the representation that H2O is wet, for instance.
I agree with all that. My question isn't about that.
Yeah. So if you already knew what H2O was, and you already knew that it was wet, but you've never felt it, let's say, then when you touch H2O, you gain a representation of a fact that you already knew.
What was your question, Boyla?
Yeah, so the question is about the kinds of propositions that she knew, because
what new proposition did she learn?
I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So the proposition that I talked about earlier, that in such a condition, I will have such and such a representation, or I will acquire such and such a representation. Right? I think earlier you described that as being a second order proposition. Is that correct? Or like it represents second order?
Yeah, making a third person observation about someone else's sense experience is not saying that that person acquired new propositional knowledge.
Well, yeah, that wasn't the question. I just wanted to verify that the thing that I described, you agree is a second order proposition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. On Frank Jackson's account, does he think that Mary knew all the second order propositions before she left the room?
What would it mean for what you mean? Like, does Mary know what it would be like for you to? Okay.
No, there's a second order proposition. You agreed that that Mary would have such and such an experience, she would have such and such a representation.
So let me try. So I think he's asking, does Mary know that when she sees red, she will find it's pretty?
Well, will she know like that she'll have that representation? Because that's a second order. You agree that it's a proposition.
Yeah.
You said it's a second order proposition. So the question is, does she know that before she leaves the room?
Yeah, that's Mary's expectation. She expects that all the things that she knows about red will be represented to her when she experiences it.
All the things she knows about red will be represented to her when she experiences it. Okay, so
representation does not equal knowledge because it's not propositional. When you represent,
that's not
the reference
the
is what you're representing. The representation is not.
I think the
reference.
thing he's claiming is knowledge is like the proposition
that's not the question.
That she will have this representation. So if she has a belief that
rather than some other representation,
right? So she
right?
has.
Like we imagine two scenarios where she sees the blue ball, but she sees it as what I see as blue, or she sees the blue ball and she sees it as what I see as red, right? There's different like propositions about whether she'll see one representation or the other, but she'd know, right?
Can I
Before she left
just
the
write
room?
this thing like real quick? Like, so if the fundamental property of something is non-deterministic, and if there is a fact that the ball will fall down, that is one of the fact. The other fact that the ball will not fall down. If the fundamental property is non-deterministic, you can still make a probabilistic prediction that the ball will probably fall down, but it is still possible that you will be wrong about it. So the point is, the fact will only be known once you make the observation, and it has to happen through time. And once you make the observation, you can then confirm the ball either did not fall down or it did fall down.
Can we bracket the non-determinism thing, because I think that deals with like facts about the future, which isn't, I think, super relevant to Jackson's retraction.
Yeah, we could return to that after, but let's just try to resolve Bolyai's questions first.
Yeah, so like suppose that the only colors that Mary hasn't seen are like red and blue, right?
Right.
And so she could be in either representational state before she'll know before she leaves the room whether she will be presented to or represented to redly or represented to bluely, right? Although she won't use that vocabulary.
Yeah, although that actually does get into part of the representationalist theory. So a lot of representationalists do think that the adjectival approach to color representation is useful, to literally refer to these not as nouns but as kinds of perception. Because physically, there's an ability for your brain to perceive different colors that's hardwired. And so when you perceive red, your brain is perceiving bluely. It's not that there is a thing.
When you perceive blue, you're perceiving bluely, you mean?
Sorry, yeah, exactly, right. So there is something hardwired in your brain that is happening. There is an ability to perceive blue. Different creatures have different color perceptions for different parts of the spectrum that they can or cannot perceive and so on, right? So that goes into why this is called the ability hypothesis, right? The ability hypothesis, the ability to perceive colors, treats colors adjectively, like you're perceiving bluely or perceiving redly. The ability to perceive redly or perceive bluely is not ascertaining some new fact or noun in the universe, but it can be said to be a representation of the wavelength of some object surface in relation to light.
Wait,
and
so
Frank Jackson is saying that you have the ability to perceive color, therefore you can acquire representations of the interaction between physical forces on surfaces of objects, which you refer to as color representations.
And it is still possible to also change your color perception. If you keep like very strong magnets next to your brain, you will not see in color. So yeah, you can create a false representation of reality.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I agree that like the capacities that your brain has, like there's some physical fact of the matter about how, well, maybe that's just conceding physicalism. Right. It seems like there's a factor that.
What I'd suggest is try to put aside physicalism, not physicalism, because you could agree with Frank Jackson's response to the argument and still not be a physicalist. It just happens to, like, there are several responses that can follow from his conclusion, which don't necessarily entail physicalism or not physicalism. It just says this argument doesn't work.
Sure. So, it seems like there's a fact of the matter about what capacities you have or what abilities you have, right? And if there's a fact of the matter, then there's a proposition about it. And I agree that the facts aren't themselves propositions. So I guess I don't understand. It seems like there's a proposition. you'd have to say that there aren't new propositions that she learns, right? So I guess what seems to me is that maybe, like, if the argument's defeated, maybe it's defeated for this reason. She does learn a new proposition about how her brain, like, what abilities she has. So she knows, like, oh, I have the ability to represent the world in this fashion. Perceive the world, perceive the ball bluely, perceive this wavelength bluely, or something.
Yeah.
She learns that, and so that's a proposition, but that's not.
She knew that before she left the room, because she knew that her brain had that ability before she left. She just represented it. Look, if she knows about the physical facts, she already knows that she's going to perceive red or blue before she leaves the room. That's just a priori expectation she has.
Okay, and so the difference. So we'd have to say she learns this same. Does she learn the same thing if she goes outside and, unbeknownst to her, she sees the blue ball, but per impossibile, she sees it as what I see as red rather than what I see as blue? Is that, like, impossible on this theory?
Say that one more time.
So two possible outcomes when she sees the blue ball. One, she actually represents it as blue. Two, unbeknownst to her, she represents it as red, but now she calls that blue.
I don't think that would be possible in the analogy. I think the analogy is like my God analogy, where she knows all true facts that can't be wrong. So I don't think she could falsely believe she'll see.
So it would involve a false representation if she saw it redly and she just called that bluely. The problem with that is that by seeing it redly, she already off the bat has a false impression, which is, like, contrary to the hypothesis.
Yeah, I mean her proposition that she knew was false or something. Like, if she had the belief that she would see it redly and not bluely.
Yeah, it means it was, like, either her representation wasn't accurate, which is contrary to the hypothesis, or the world, it's a red ball, not a blue ball, which is also contrary.
Yeah. Then she wouldn't know all facts. There'd be ones that she didn't know because it was wrong.
Or she got wrong, yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at, like, Dennett's response to this, the physical facts include the state of her brain. The physical facts include the ability to simulate and anticipate any outcome that's going to transpire when she leaves the room. And this maps to self-driving car style training, where we take simulated environments that are not the real world. We run a simulation of the real world, and when the thing experiences the real world that it's never experienced before, it doesn't know that it's never experienced before. It experiences it exactly like something that's very familiar with, because the representation was just as good as the real thing. The representation was a very, very close approximation of reality. So that's literally a Mary's room possibility, is that Mary could just run a simulation such that she's already seen red before she leaves the room.
She's already seen red, and by what we mean is she, like,
the part of your
correctly...
Like, the part of your brain that recognizes a thing is a cortical column in the neocortex, which starts out unorganized and responds to a novel stimuli detection. When novel stimuli are detected, new cortical columns become aligned to them and adaptive to them. What happens subsequently is that it goes from a novel experience to a routed experience to that cortical column, which routes that type of sense data in the future permanently as the handler for that type of sense data. So
sure, the particular mechanisms aren't really
the point. The point is in the car analogy. Training a self-driving car to experience all kinds of colors and people and objects before you unleash it in the real world is exactly like Mary running a simulation on her own brain prior to leaving the room, which is identical to her actually having seen red already.
Yeah.
So when she sees red, she wouldn't experience it as a new thing. She'd experience it as something she's seen before.
Yeah. So I guess that part I don't understand.
That's Dennett's response. Basically, Dennett's just saying, like, the physical facts include the ability to modify her own brain to already have the physical equivalent of the experience.
Yeah, I know. I understand what he's saying. What I don't understand is the inference that if you ran a simulation on a computer and got this output this like state description of what your brain state would be, whatever that is, throughout the timeline of observing the ball when you go outside. What I don't understand is why that would actually, like, seeing that readout on the monitor would create the same, like, it would create the route that will be used when you go out and see the blue ball. Because it seems like that's what he's saying, right?
She doesn't even need a monitor. The whole point is that if she knows all the physical facts, then she knows how to modify her brain directly to the state it would be in if it had gone through the simulation.
Oh,
she can skip the monitor. The whole point is, like, if you're a cyberneticist who understands everything about brains, you can just hack your brain.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. He's saying you can, like, stick electrodes in your brain to, like, manually create all the paths yourself.
There's a physical experiment. They actually took a mouse that went through a maze, but they hooked it up to a neural prosthesis. And so the memory of the maze wasn't stored in its own neurons. It was stored in a disconnectable remote prosthesis. They disconnected the prosthesis from that mouse and connected it to a different mouse. And the mouse they connected to ran the maze. They did the same thing over wireless. They hooked a radio from one mouse to the other, and the mouse that hadn't run the maze was connected to the mouse that had, and it used the neurons from the other mouse remotely, which is like almost like cyber telepathy, and it ran the maze the other mouse knew about.
Okay, so what this means is that the typical interpretation that she learns something new is sort of a failure of imagination. Because I get Dennett's reply that, like, if she did this modification, then she wouldn't learn anything new because, like, this wouldn't even be a new experience to her. She'd, like, her brain would already know how to route it.
Yeah.
I guess I don't understand. Like, that makes sense, but she'd have to take some action to do that. If she just, like that action doesn't involve acquiring any new facts, right?
Well,
so you'd still have to have the account that, like, when she goes out, she doesn't learn any new facts. All that happens is her brain does the mapping. She doesn't have to do that herself. She, like, goes outside and nature does it for her, right?
Yeah, but the thing that nature is doing is just giving her brain a representation.
It's not new knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. It wouldn't be new knowledge. It would be like you got this new routing in your brain. Congratulations.
Yeah. And there's people who disagree with representationalism. It's not like everybody thinks that therefore Jackson recanted, therefore it's bogus. Because some people just don't like representationalism. Jackson used to be an opponent of representationalism. This argument was an anti-representationalist argument originally. And the article about representationalism lists him as an opponent of representationalism until it wasn't. And then he agreed.
I want to ask you this real quickly. Are we still talking about the same thing?
I think we just got to the bottom of it.
This is about defeating the inference of the argument, and not necessarily whether answering. This is like an undercutting defeater for the argument, not a rebutting defeater.
Didn't TJ already debunk
this is
that one?
Yes, I did. But this is better than anything you've brought up. So
I don't think so.
Good. Well, this is his reply is the exact same thing I've said multiple times. The representationalism is the language analogy I used, and the knowing the facts and propositions is the God analogy I used. These are the same analogies I've used. You just didn't get it.
Well, yeah. So, like my question, like the only remaining question I have, is about whether physicalism would entail knowing these second order propositions. And whether those are in principle derivable from the first order ones. Because if all she knows in the room are the first order propositions, if those are all the physical facts, but then she doesn't know these second order facts, if physicalism requires that she knows those, then that would be sufficient to defeat physicalism. But I think that's a hard question. I'd have to think about it more.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I'm not super familiar with representationalism and the whole literature on it, but I started reading the article, which goes in pretty good depth, and I'll watch the interviews again, and we could have another discussion on this later if you want.
I think, Ix, I would like to make a point on this. You can watch Donald Hoffman. He talks about this actually. So it's basically like we, as a biological organism, we have like an approximate representation of reality. So we don't have our reconstruction of reality in our brain is not exactly as it is. So you, like, if you take your hand and look at it, you don't directly see bacteria, but you take a microscope and then you see the bacteria. But your reconstruction of reality is only sufficient enough for you to navigate your environment and survive. That's all that's required. So you can extend that representation by making use of tools and other materials. So you get a much more accurate representation. I don't think the absolute representation of reality is required for us to survive, or at least make some approximate tracks.
Yeah, representation already includes the idea that there's multiple levels of representation. So in the H2O example versus the water example, there are multiple possible ways of representing something, and you might revise them over time. And so the thing that you are representational relation to changes as you gain more understanding of the actual thing itself. But the thing you're getting understanding of is the thing itself, not some change in your propositional attitude.
But doesn't that mean that the sense data, like if the sense data doesn't change, like you see water, you see that it's wet, or you have that, deduction or whatever. You then go learn about that water is H2O, and then you go back and you get this sense data, and now you're like, oh no, it's H2O that's wet. It's not water that's wet. But the sense data might be identical between those, right? Or like very similar. So like if the representation is different, but the sense data is the same or similar, then it seems like what's the connection between the representation and the sense data? Are those just the same thing?
Well, different physical knowledge, right? So in the case of the superficial representation, all that's sufficient for survival in evolutionary terms is the water is wet kind of understanding. You don't need to know what water is. But once you gain the understanding of what water really is, you have a new representation that supersedes the water is wet representation.
Okay, but so the representation doesn't depend only on the sense data. It depends on other like background beliefs you have or something.
Yeah. And that's all the stuff that Mary would know in advance before she left the room. Before she leaves the room, she's already an expert in all the things that she's about to represent, or that she could have simulated representing before leaving.
Yeah.
We have a couple of people that wanted to change the subject at some point.
Yeah, because we've been talking about this for an hour, bro. Like for like an hour and 5 minutes. Like I see on the stream.
Someone in the chat wanted to talk about problem of pleasure or something. I don't know. T-Jump, how do you want to go?
Yeah, you could do it. I don't read the chat, so I have no idea what they're asking now.
Yeah, Power Lever, can you clarify in text what exactly it is that you want to discuss?
This is a troll.
Wait.
He's asking if there are counter arguments against the problem of pleasure, and I think he said before what he meant.
What is the problem
he said,
of pleasure?
Pleasure. Any good arguments to the problem of pleasure and abstaining from pleasure? Is this like utilitarianism kind of pleasure seeking? Like, is this just a version of utilitarianism that just says like we ought maximize pleasure?
Yeah, like hedonism. I think he's arguing like, is there a reason to abstain from pleasure? A justifiable reason? And sure, of course there are. For like, if you want to learn, want different experiences, challenge yourself, there are definitely reasons to abstain from pleasure. Overindulgence, especially, is not very pragmatic.
Amputation of a gangrenous limb.
Doing cocaine 24/7 is not great for your health.
Yeah, also the utilitarians, I forget which it was. I don't know if it was Mill or the other one. But they sort of classified utility or pleasure into multiple kinds. And one of those kinds was like long-term pleasure that comes at the expense of temporary pain, for instance. So even utilitarians formulated multiple senses of pleasure other than just immediate pleasure.
And are there any philosophers that stated in regards to the problem of pleasure, maybe safeguards and barriers of kind of like to keep you aware of how far you're going off the track?
You're asking if any philosophers suggested like a method of like practicing abstinence from immediate pleasure? I think Stoicism falls in that category.
Well, could you expand on what you mean? What is the problem of pleasure?
This started off with the talk that Ravi Zacharias had back in the day, and he titled his video "The Problem of Pleasure."
What? Yeah, I'm not. I don't. Ravi Zacharias isn't a philosopher, so the problem of pleasure isn't like an academically published thing. So you'd have to explain to us what Ravi Zacharias interpreted that to mean. And keep in mind, Ravi Zacharias was a sex offender, so he didn't really succeed as his goal.
Yeah. For me, the main problem is that there's a missing link between pleasure that's continuous without reprieve, and also pleasure that kind of doesn't it accentuates itself. So from doing one thing, and then you end up scaling what you're doing because of the feeling that you get, and it kind of dies. In a sense, that problem.
You mean growing a tolerance? Like, because I think you're talking about the problem of the fact that if you do something a lot, you gain a tolerance and you get less joy from it over time or something.
Well, you get less dopamine, but is that what joy is?
Yes, objectively. But I think, like, I don't really think there is a problem of pleasure. I think that there's a pragmatic implications that we need to limit ourselves in certain cases so that our biology doesn't respond negatively to it. But like, if we had control over the universe and could set our brains to do whatever we wanted, I think we should be able to set our brains to enjoy pleasure permanently, and there'd be no problem with that at all. The only problems are the fact that because we live in a pragmatic world that's limited by our biology, that our biology can only handle certain amounts of pleasure, and anything beyond that damages our biology. And so we have to find ways to mitigate the damage to our biology. And the problem isn't with the pleasure, the problem is with the limits of our biology.
Thank you.
There's also a philosopher, or I guess he was a priest, a philosopher bishop, Joseph Butler, in the 1700s, who wrote against hedonism. And he said, pursuing one's happiness wholly engrosses you and leaves no room for any principle which could absolutely lead to actual happiness or enjoyment of any kind whatsoever. In the 1800s, philosopher John Stuart Mill similarly wrote in his autobiography, ask yourself whether you're happy and you cease to be so. Almost 100 years later, the psychoanalyst Viktor Frankl wrote in his book Man's Search for Meaning, happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue. In other words, from something that makes you happy. It is not a goal unto itself. And the long-held intuition was validated by psychological studies in recent times. It was shown overvaluing happiness is counterproductive. When wanting to be happy is made the absolute goal, it reliably leads people to feel less happy. People are less, and this is a quote, people are at a greater risk for clinical mood difficulties, which is a really compelling finding, says June Gruber, an associate professor of psychology and neuroscience. One experiment found that when people were instructed to try to be happy while listening to hedonically ambiguous music, they ended up in worse moods than a group of people who weren't given any instructions at all. Another determined that people who valued happiness reported less happiness while watching happy films. Telling people to try to be happy while watching something boring or asking them to list activities that would make them happier in the future made them feel like they had less leisure time and lowered their well-being. So maybe these experiments don't quite cover the kind of pleasure that you're talking about, but the article kind of goes into some more depth, I think. It's been studied not just by philosophy, but psychology.
Thanks, guys.
Is this about porn addiction?
No, it's about how, let's say, like from a Christian perspective, how Christianity like condones your interaction with people, your self-seeking gains, kind of.
Yeah, it says you have to love God more than your neighbor. Loving your neighbor is only job number 2.
Yeah, I think most religions do introduce principles, and the principles give people happiness in a way that isn't directly just try to be as happy as possible, simpliciter. So I don't think that's unique to Christianity. Like, Buddhism especially, I think, addresses the idea that happiness is not going to be the default actual reality. Like, acknowledging that suffering is an inevitability is like an essential insight in most wisdom traditions. And I think Christianity's whole idea of original sin is kind of a weird take on it, it's a bit kinky and twisted, but it's in a similar vein, right? They're just saying, look, we're all gonna struggle. Like, there's no perfect person. That's not a totally different insight than the Buddha version. Just that the Buddha version gives a little bit more pragmatic advice and doesn't require the supernatural to get you out of the problem. It just acknowledges there's a problem and just accept it, and like don't be in denial of it. The less you're in denial of it, the less miserable it will make you. I would say the most important words I've ever experienced when I actually go through suffering is it's okay to suffer. Suffering is an all right thing. It's not something to be in denial of or running away from. If anything, in my experience, when you're suffering or going through grief or anything like that, allowing yourself to do it is really, really healthy, not trying to hide or suppress it.
I want to kind of reply to that thing thing you said. So I don't know, like, do you think do you think every suffering is necessary?
No, I just think that we gain something by suffering that's sort of unavoidable, like the kind of suffering that you're not choosing to have that suffering. It's something that's instinctual reaction to the situation. That's going to happen. So if it's going to happen, why not accept it and allow yourself to experience it rather than be terribly afraid of it and make it worse?
No, I mean, but you can choose to. No, I mean, but like I kind of disagree on like the choosing thing. So you can choose to suffer, but you can't choose not to suffer, right? That's why I agree on that though. So you can't choose not to suffer, but you can choose to suffer though, because there's some instances where you can choose like to do like less than like. So you can do the minimal amount.
In the situations where you can't avoid suffering from environmental pressures, that is not in your control.
Yeah,
I know you can't. Yeah. I agree with you guys. Like you can't choose not to suffer. But I'm saying you can choose. You can choose to suffer at a
yes.
distinct level.
Clearly, we know what S&M is. Yes, we know this. We know this.
Yeah. So like if you're rich, you wouldn't. If you're rich, you wouldn't like suffer that much with any a housing or whatever, or not. So that's what I mean. Like.
He was just telling you about the indirect things that can happen, which is outside your control, which you can't choose whether to suffer or not.
Yeah, I agree with that. But like, but there's I think there is ways to like so the basically suffering you can I would like me personally I would entail suffering as like a reaction. So you have to, so basically when people look at the negatives of like the suffering, but they don't look at the positives. And that's probably why it would be called suffering.
So if I'm experiencing extreme pain, if a dog is biting me, what is the positive side of that? Like, should I just stay positive?
Wait, no, that's not suffering. That's pain, bro. That's pain.
Yeah, that's suffering, right? Isn't that suffering also?
That's pain, not suffering.
No,
so I would not suffer if a dog bites me.
No, you feel extreme pain.
Yeah, I feel pain and suffering. I'm suffering during that period.
Dude, literally suffering, the state of undergoing pain.
So yeah, what's your point?
So I'm just using the lowercase definition then.
Yep, no problem. Like I'll try to take your advice, and the next time a dog bites me, I'll try to stay positive, and it might work out. Who knows?
I don't quite.
But no. I mean, there's like positive things you can learn out of suffering. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I don't think he's making the claim that there's no such thing as suffering. I think he's just saying that there are choices that you have vis-a-vis your experience of suffering that can make it more or less worse. So, for instance, like a person who gets bit by a dog experiences physical pain, but the degree to which they become permanently affected by it to a larger degree than the physical pain is going to be somewhat psychological. And in some cases, people become very traumatized in a way that's disproportionate to the original event because of second order beliefs that they have and reactions to those beliefs. Like, imagine you have an intrusive thought of something that bothers you. Now, when it occurs to you, it's involuntary, right? The thought just occurred to you. You didn't take any action to initiate thinking about that thought. But in response to the thought, what you do have a choice about is being aware of and acknowledging the thought, or having a worse reaction and then spiraling out of control because of the thought. So in the case of like, oh, I have this intrusive thought. Well, how do I feel about it? Well, I'm disappointed in myself because I've been trying to eliminate this intrusive thought. Now I'm despondent because I feel less hopeful because I thought I got rid of that thought, but it's back. Now I'm scared that I'm just going to get worse and I'm going to be as bad as I used to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a spiraling of thoughts that can originate from a single thought. And the pain is no different, right? You could be traumatized for life and afraid of dogs and hate dogs forever. Or you could get over it and realize that maybe there's a reason why that particular dog incident happened, but it's not going to color all your future experiences with dogs, for instance.
Yeah, but I think one point to add is also like if the dog bites me and if the experience is extremely traumatic, then I have PTSD, and it is not really easy to like think positive and try to escape those thoughts. We will still have PTSD. It's very difficult to escape that.
Yeah, there's a physicality. There's a very good book on this called The Body Keeps the Score. That's kind of the definitive book on the subject that acknowledges and explores the clinical evidence that these types of things are sort of physically embedded in our responses. They become instinctual responses that are not necessarily consciously chosen or easily dismissed.
And not just that, I think when you like read about depression, like one of the things that can shape your chronic depression is also like these traumatic events can also shape this. So you can't really escape that. I think it just rewires your brain in a way that you can't really escape those thoughts.
Well, I wouldn't say that you cannot escape, because I think saying it's difficult is different than saying you can't.
Yeah, so I mean difficult.
Yeah, difficult. Like the degree to which people acknowledge that this is difficult is the first step to which they can undertake in trying to tackle it, which is a slow and difficult process that takes effort. And so acknowledging just how difficult it is kind of a necessary precondition to investing in the enormous effort and also monetary costs. Like for a lot of people, it requires therapy, and therapy is very expensive in some cases if you don't have it covered under medical. So
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, but like IX, I just want to know, like, do you like believe you can rewire your brain, or
to degrees? Yeah, it's just not an easy thing. Like it's not there are certain kinds of denialistic, like think happy thoughts claims that people will make that are just obnoxious when you actually have PTSD or whatever. I think that it's not as simple as saying, oh, you should be able to just like think your way out of it, but it is. There are possible ways of accepting things about ourselves that can sometimes lead to changing them. But accepting, and this goes back to the whole like accepting suffering rather than trying to deny and avoid it thing. I think that just like with grief, experiencing grief, letting yourself experience grief is a very healthy step that can often lead to the, the transcendence of the grief, the getting over it part, right? Acknowledging how bad something is, getting therapy for it, etc., is probably a healthier attitude than just telling yourself that you ought to be able to think yourself out of it. And it's like blaming yourself for, being weak or something because you failed to do so on your own. You kind of need help in many cases, whether it be from like a teacher or a therapist or in some cases medication.
Yeah, like don't you not like get like negative side effects of like when you're like negative and stuff, like don't you like get negative side effects or like increases like the negative side effects?
Yep, I think there could be a chain of like events that follow after. Like if I have PTSD and I have a bunch of thoughts, I maybe sleep all the time because I constantly feel depressed. I try to take medicines, and then sometimes I get suicidal thoughts, and that is the consequence of that is the eventual consequence that could happen from these preceding events. So yeah, sure, like there could be different outcomes.
And if that is the case, you should probably look into ketamine therapy.
Yep. I think one of the examples which I wanted to ask you about is like, have you ever heard about like the I forgot the term for that, but when you are given anesthesia, yeah, it's called anesthesia awareness. So there was a person who was aware during anesthesia and his body was completely paralyzed and he was completely able to sense all the pain during that entire operation session. And it was so dramatic that eventually the amount of PTSD that he had, all the crazy thoughts and nightmares that he had, he could not live with that, and he eventually committed suicide. And it's so difficult to like escape those things. He just wanted to die. He when he was having his interview with the people that interviewed him, he literally said he does not feel to live. He does not choose to live. These thoughts keep coming back. It's very traumatic.
That's pretty tragic. I think
it's very tragic. It's very tragic. If
what's also tragic though, depending on. Good.
Yeah, so I just really wanted to quickly say, Abe God, I think I understand what you're saying. So basically saying, like, in these like really dramatic situations, it's like really hard for people to think positively or accept these things because it's just this dramatic.
Exactly. It all depends on the intensity of the event. If the traumatic event is very intense, then sure, it's going to be very hard to recover from that, even with therapy, probably. The only solution, I think, to this would be in the near future with artificial intelligence and all the progressing technologies, where somehow we could be able to manipulate matter in our brain and like reverse the states. Then probably yes.
Abe God, but there's a way to counter that.
How?
Yeah, you just use the opposite of what suffering would be.
So, like I told you already, right? Like if a dog bites me, I can try to think about the opposite of suffering, but can I escape from that?
Not think though. You're not thinking because there's a limit to how much you can think good of something, right? So, but like,
all right, guys, I'm going to try something really quick. I set up a setting on my YouTube channel for redirects, and it says you can like redirect viewers from one channel to another. So I'm going to try to redirect you guys to my T-Jump Gaming channel. Let me know if it works. Check back.